United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Last time I was here, I said.
Okay, the first thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. April 12th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
We have motion and a second, any discussion on the minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First up, we have at 10 o'clock, the South Noble Lake Drainage District minutes. Who's gonna handle that, Linda?
Accepting the engineer report, Troy,
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
okay.
I'll second
Any discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
We want to, where did they go? Okay, John and Tony Smith are here from Harrison County.
Okay,
Okay,
so.
did you get that, Linda?
Yes,
Walter's not coming, right?
no.
Okay.
Sandquist, I thought came in.
Yeah, Troy's back in this other corner.
Troy, what, is there anything you want to, talk to us about on the certified completion of the contract?
No, I think construction went well and happy with the results.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from any of the landowners. I don't know if anybody
No, I haven't.
filed anything.
No.
Okay.
So are you looking for a motion to accept the engineer's report certifying the completion?
I believe the procedure is you give anybody a chance to comment now before you approve my certificate of completion.
All right,
If there's anybody that
I can do that. Is anybody in the audience would like to speak either in favor or opposed to the engineer's report certifying completion of the repairs to the South Noble Lake ditch?
Or on the phone.
All right,
And this is all of the result of the 2019 flood. So that shows you how long it takes to go through those processes.
Well, then I would recommend if there is no comments, that you do entertain a motion to accept the report. If the report's accepted, just a little further information, then there still remains about a month's time period before final payment is made that allows any lien waivers to come in or anything like that. So final payment on the retainage due the contractor cannot be made less than 30 days from the approval by the board.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The other thing on the agenda for the drainage district is a proposed new levy district to select the attorney and set the hearing date for June 14th of 2022.
Yes.
Okay. Are we selecting an attorney today or at the public hearing?
I think we did that today, I believe it is.
All right. Who is it?
We recommend Becker.
Becker,
Was that the
for our
same
attorney
ones
for that district.
that have been working on it?
It's one we've used in the past, but not the same
Okay.
one, yeah.
He's the one we've used for the Coulter,
Right.
so that, it's the same one.
Okay.
Those other attorneys were for the litigation portion of it.
Okay.
So can we get a name of the firm then? Do we have a name of the firm?
Do we need to make a motion, and
Is it the proper name, Becker, just Becker?
what's his first name?
Mr. Becker.
Mr. Becker.
And they're, where are they out of? They're in Des Moines. What is this guy?
I think he's at, I
That's
think it is Des
right.
Moines, I believe it is, yeah,
Charles Becker.
that sounds right.
So you want a motion to, approve the attorney of Charles Becker for the new levy district and set the hearing date of June 14th, 2022?
Right.
What time is that?
9 o'clock.
What day is it?
That's a Tuesday.
The Tuesday or 10 o'clock, that'll work with you guys.
All right.
We're gonna do it here.
We can.
Yeah,
It's our regular meeting day.
What's that?
Our regular meeting day is Tuesday at
It
10.
seems to be easier for you guys, yeah.
Is that the 14th?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I believe that's right.
Bellin.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to select Bellin and McCormick as the attorney for the new levy district and set a hearing date of June 14th, 2022 at 10 o'clock, right here.
Motion approved.
That's his law firm name, by the way, so.
Law firm and the actual attorney is,
Charles Becker.
Becker, okay. Is that,
Did you get a second?
Second.
I did not.
oh, second.
Is there any other discussion on this? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is that the end of the,
Harrison County Plot Joint Business, correct?
okay, so we're completed with that. Do we need a motion to go out of this, Scott?
Yeah, motion.
Well, I think we made a motion to go in, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, prerogative.
Motion and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Awesome. All right, that's
Thanks, you
done. Hey,
guys.
thanks, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Paula Hazelwood, the executive director, and Shalimar's not with us today, right?
No, I was gonna tell you that, so I know Shal's on the agenda, but she is actually officially on maternity leave and will be welcoming her new baby girl into the world tomorrow, so. And your,
Who's this new lady you hired?
do what?
Who's this new lady you hired?
This new lady that I hired?
You didn't hire.
Do we have-
Oh, that would be her.
That's with Iowa West, I'm sorry.
I was like, where?
You were right behind her and I just wanted to acknowledge you.
Clint Sauce.
Thanks, Michelle.
Right here.
Awesome.
Yep.
You're with McClure,
Yes.
and you're gonna give a presentation on the possible funding for the RPCIC project.
Correct.
Paula, you're up.
Yes, so good morning, and I just want to give you a little background just to refresh everybody's memory. So probably back in Q1 or Q2 of 2021, Supervisor Belt and Matt Wyatt approached the Iowa West Foundation really about, the ARPA funding and additional federal funding that could be coming down the pipeline because of COVID. And so, really what their concerns were is to, be out in our rural communities and, trying to get them, I say, positioned to be competitive for community projects. And so we know that there's a lot of happenings going on all around Potawatomi County. And, some of our rural communities, they do have the capacity, they have city clerks, and they have people that, definitely can assist with these type of endeavors. But they're lengthy, there's a lot involved when you go for federal funding. You guys all know that, I'm preaching to the choir here. And so out of that, discussion, Supervisor Belt and Matt Wyatt had discussions with Brenda Mainwaring and I believe Matt Hinkes, and they really kind of walked through what this could potentially look like. And so thus the Rural Potawatomi County Infrastructure Coalition was formed. They reached out to Michelle Franks, who was at Golden Hills RC&D at the time, now, like Brian said, is obviously with the Iowa West Foundation, and then myself with Advanced Southwest Iowa Corporation to form this partnership. So we really, Michelle and I talked, we talked with the Iowa West Foundation, obviously with Supervisor Belt and Matt Wyatt, and really structured out a plan that this would be put together in 2 phases. So phase 1 would be Golden Hills RC&D really getting out into the communities, meeting with the mayors, city councils, kind of doing some town hall meetings to see what projects they had actively in the pipeline, maybe some that they, wish list kind of projects, but really centering around infrastructure improvements, housing, and placemaking items. And so Michelle and her team mobilized, and they really got out there pretty quickly at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and went out and held these meetings and put together a very comprehensive spreadsheet for each community, not only with the project information, but also some pretty comprehensive demographics and things. So her team did just a fabulous job putting all of that information together. That has been, I believe, shared with the County Board of Supervisors. If not, we're happy to share that information again. It's just good to have that knowledge base going into it. And then once those projects were identified specifically in those 3 categories that I talked about, then it would transfer to phase 2, and that's working with Advanced Southwest Iowa. Shalimar really has taken the lead on it, with me kind of helping her in the background. We selected an engineering consulting firm through an RFQ process, and I'm going to introduce the McClure folks here in just a minute. I think we're tracking very, very nicely on, what the mission was, and I want to read that to you just so as they're walking through their presentation, you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So the mission of this coalition is countywide collaborative that will identify current and future infrastructure, community projects in rural Potawatomi County. Collaboration will provide guidance and resources to those communities that desire to complete the vetted projects by utilizing American Recovery Plan and/or state and federal programming. So Clint Sloss is here from McClure, and he's their economic development strategist. And then next to him is Adam Thompson. He's their public finance consultant. And I will tell you, it was a pretty brisk RFQ process, and we set some pretty high standards for that. And one of those is not only the expertise, obviously, on the engineering side, which McClure definitely has, but then also very, very tight relations in Washington, D.C., and obviously Des Moines. Because as we're putting these applications together, the communities, we really need that outreach to our state and federal delegations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Clint and to Adam for the presentation you'll see on the screen.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Great. Makes it easier. Thank you very much. So again, my name is Clint Sloss, and this is Adam Thompson. And Paula really laid it out pretty well. I'll kind of skip ahead a few slides here. Maybe.
Do you want me to run it for you so you don't have to multitask?
It's the first time using it, so. Okay, sorry about that.
Is it on?
Yes, it's on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I must have done it.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, now I'm in control. There we go. So Paula kind of went over already the partners, and you're all aware of the groups that have kind of been involved in this project. These are the communities we worked with throughout this project. 13 communities. Basically, every community except for Council Bluffs, they have the capacity and the ability to kind of go about this work themselves. And so then, our first round of kind of tasks that we kind of went around was, again, we took the information that was provided to us from Golden Hills and their research and their work, and then narrowed that scope down to those 3 kind of topic areas of housing, sewer, or water and sewer, and placemaking or quality of life amenities. And so then from there, we kind of created 5, buckets, if you will, that we kind of looked at priority projects back in January. Housing was kind of one of the top ones we heard across the board in all these rural communities. And so one of the ideas that came about from that was looking at how we establish industrial foundations to support local housing. We already know that a few communities already have long-standing, successful industrial foundations that have supported housing efforts. So how do we expand that to the other communities? And then we looked at water. Obviously, water is one of the top and primary functions or uses of the ARPA funding. So we looked at, what are some regional projects, regional opportunities that we could explore through these funds. Roads, looking at each community, many of the communities had identified a need for support for how do we identify what roads need improvements long term. Some of the smaller communities just didn't have that process in place to form kind of a capital improvement plan. So we looked at ideas around that. Fourth, we looked at walkability. We know Safe Routes to School is a good vehicle to use walkability and pedestrian pathways for trails and sidewalks. And then lastly, looking at marketing and how do we support countywide initiatives to showcase amenities throughout the communities of Potawatomi County. And as we went through that and started working internally on narrowing down the projects, we kind of came up against some of the hurdles of how do we apply ARPA funding. So one, there are some challenges of how we actually apply these funds for housing under ARPA. There's affordability requirements that really are pigeonhole us to what we can and can't do with the funds. For water, it's pretty straightforward. Water is definitely an eligible use, one of the primary functions of the ARPA funds. We also look at how do we apply that to bipartisan infrastructure law, AKA the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, which has just been passed, which we know at this point is likely to go through IFA, or Iowa Finance Authority's revolving loan fund program. For the roads piece, directly, funds are not eligible for ARPA for road infrastructure. However, if they're tied to some kind of water and sewer project, then there's an opportunity there. But primarily, you can't just do road improvements with these funds. Again, the bipartisan infrastructure law is coming to, has been fully funded and looking at funds coming to the RPA 18, which is administered by MAPA. So there'll be additional funds through MAPA to help address some of the challenges there. Walkability, as we kind of got into that, the Potawatomi County Community Foundation is overseeing those efforts currently, and again, we'll see some funds become made available to them through the infrastructure law. And then lastly, our understanding is that there is a hiring of a new position to cover this need for the marketing piece at the county level. So of these kind of 5 areas we talked about in January, we came back around and said, okay, what is our ability to still apply the ARPA funds to some of the projects that are within our bucket here? And so we went back, looked at the final ruling that was made available back in January, and took effect April 1st. And they kind of have four primary eligible areas of use. First is being the replacing of lost public sector revenue. Again, pretty straightforward at the county level, being able to provide funds to help offset allowances to support where there are funds that were taken away from COVID or were not collected during COVID. Number 2 is supporting COVID public health and economic response. So again, this is supporting things like providing, again, further affordable housing, child care services, hospitals, and other kind of projects around those areas. And around the idea of housing, again, there's an affordability component of that really targets those in the 300% of the poverty rate, which is about $80,000 for a family of 4 in Potawatomi County. Or it also stipulates a 65% of area moderate income, which is the AMI. So that's about $57,000 for a family of 4. So if we're going to be targeting new housing projects in the county using these ARPA funds, those are the type of households we have to actually support. So which is a challenge in today's housing market. We know how the cost of construction continues to grow, the cost of all the infrastructure, everything continues to grow. So how do we possibly support that? It's a challenge. 3 of 4 is providing premium pay for eligible workers. So this is basically supporting those frontline workers that were directly impacted by COVID, another eligible feature of the ARPA funds. And then lastly, and the ones we want to stress are investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So this is really where we really saw the most opportunity for us in our initiative and our scope of work to really apply the ARPA funds that were allocated to the county. It's identified as top priority, and you can't see it on my screen, but at the bottom there, we didn't emphasize broadband for the sake that the state has already allocated over $400 million to broadband initiatives. We know there's more funding coming down through the infrastructure law that this was passed, and so we thought that we wanted to apply these funds, the ARPA funds, strategically for water and sewer as matching funds to help layer those funding opportunities. And I'll let, so then kind of went through this a minute ago here, but really each community's top priorities were selected from the last round, and then we really narrowed down the scope, focusing on eligibility for water and sewer. And again, I noted some of those opportunities for housing development. So there could be some potential funding that could be allocated for housing development. Again, it has to target those in the affordable category. So that's something to consider. And I'll let Adam kind of talk a little bit about the different water funds here.
Yeah, so Clint touched on a little bit with IFA's SRF program, and that really being the prime funding source that we see for the county and the small communities, rural communities, to leverage these ARPA funds for additional funding. IFA has a very large pot of money that they are getting due to the infrastructure bill. From what we're hearing from them, they're still working through the criteria of what that program is going to look like. But in general, it will provide up to 49% loan forgiveness for qualifying SRF projects and programs. So this is a great opportunity for these water and sewer projects to leverage the ARPA dollars for additional funding from the state. They are also working on a program where it's not 49% or nothing. They want to touch a lot of projects across the state, a lot of communities across the state. So they may even be looking at something where they provide 20%, 15%, different levels of funding based on how they score in the criteria. So really a great opportunity there. USDA water and sewer programs that they have, those are really targeted to distressed communities or at-need communities, primarily around LMI. So it is a great program for our LMI communities. It's a combination of grants and loans, but you can't get one without the other. If you take their grant, you also have to take their loan. So it really has to be the right fit for communities, but definitely something that works well for communities that qualify for it. So other federal things looking at, so FEMA, BIL, CDBG. CDBG I think is a really good opportunity again for those communities that meet the LMI requirements when looking at water and sewer projects. So another way to leverage funds and opportunities in these communities. And then local sources. So, you know, I think in all these communities there is a local commitment to these projects. And there's a variety of things within these local communities that we can assist them with and how to leverage their funds locally to help make these projects happen.
And as an aside too, we understand, you know, iWest Foundation, Potawatomi Community Foundation, we have a lot of other resources we can tap into to help layer in some of those funds to help, again, reduce that end cost to the end user of these programs. And as an aside here, you know, we talked about the USDA requiring LMI or low to moderate income qualifications. This kind of shows you who is eligible currently for LMI. So if you're 51% or above LMI, you're eligible. So Hancock is automatically eligible for those kinds of funds through USDA. Those that are in the 40 to 50% have opportunity to do an income survey to determine whether or not they are income eligible for the program. So if you're between 40 to 50%, it's kind of a toss-up, so you can do that survey and make that designation. If you're below 39%, it makes it much more difficult on a community level to be eligible for those funds. So as you can see, Crescent, Macedonia, McClellan, Minden, Oakland, Trainer, and Underwood all would be ineligible for those grant funds through USDA. They could probably apply for a loan, but again, the benefit of the USDA program is that mix between the loan and the grant. And so typically you'd see those folks likely go into the SRF, a straight loan program for any kind of water and sewer project. As a kind of an update on where the funding stands at the state and federal level, the funds for the state will be allocated, our understanding is in May. And so those funds will then likely be allocated to the county, the next round of funds to the county here, either, you know, we talked about after July 1 possibly, if not sooner. It could be tomorrow, but what we've come to understand is that they want to wait till the next fiscal year starts in order for those funds to be allocated.
The state really doesn't want to throw millions of dollars into your account like right at the end of June. That becomes a budgetary struggle for the county, and local government, so they really plan on waiting until July.
So again, with this second kind of tranche of funds, it is our understanding that ARPA funding is then completely depleted. There'll be no other funds that will be available at the federal level. It's all going to be, again, allocated to the community, to the state, and then to the communities and the counties at that point. And then as far as those funds are concerned, there's no further funds from that program. But again, we have more funding available coming through the infrastructure act that was just passed. So just want to clarify that. I know previously, early on, they thought there was going to be kind of some large federal grant program, but then it was determined in the last, I think, 6 months that it would just be allocated to states and they can kind of do with it as they see fit, within these guidelines, of course. So then we looked at what are the projects we have on our list that fit the criteria. So we kind of had 4 criteria that we used. Eligibility, again, is first and foremost. We really focused on water and sewer projects within our large list. We know that there's a lot of variety of projects in our list from each community. Again, we went through the full list, narrowed it down to 2 to 3 projects, and then really focused on, from there, this eligibility component of ARPA funding. Looking at community need, it's kind of a mix of the communities that have a lower threshold or lower ability to afford these projects and these improvements because of their size. And then you also have those that are least eligible for other funding mechanisms, like you said, those that are like Crescent. I'll touch on them in a minute, but we know they have a large water and sewer challenge ahead of them, somewhere in the $5 million range. If they were to just not have any support for those improvements, they would see their rates go up astronomically, double, maybe even and triple. I mean, it's just so that's, and then their income, their LMI is to a point where they would be ineligible for those grants through USDA. So it's how do we find that balance and mix of support for those communities as well as those smaller communities that are of lesser means. So on to the 6 projects that we have here. Again, this is broken down from the extensive list that we have, and based on, again, eligibility, based on timeline, based on a community need, as well as financial need. So Hancock was identified as one of the projects here. They have some water tower repairs and lagoon evaluation. Basically, they already know what the repairs are needed for the water tower. However, they have some seepage concerns with their lagoons, and so we would suggest there be some kind of evaluation completed to understand the extent of that damage and how much is needed to make those repairs. We have a high-level estimate. We've really put asterisks on saying that these are very high-level. As we know, construction costs are going kind of fluctuating depending on the availability of labor and resources. But this is kind of a high-level understanding of what those costs could look like for these improvements and for these fixes. We looked at Minden, identified they have water main replacements to a cost of upwards of $800,000. It's about eight blocks to do that, and with that, it would likely replace the sidewalks in the streets as a result of those water main improvements. And this one in particular, we used another project we're working on, a very similar kind of setup where they're doing conversion from 4-inch to 8-inch mains in another community, and about $150 a linear foot. And so we kind of, again, ballparked this so we understand what the extent of this expenses would be. The third project we have on our list is Neola's wastewater connection to rest stop. This was one that our understanding was a mandate by, I guess, I don't know if the state or the federal highway who oversees the rest stops. But more or less, they have to connect their lagoons to their wastewater treatment plant, and then their obligation for that was $400,000. It's our understanding they also applied for some funds through Iowa West Foundation already for that effort. The benefit of this to them is that in doing so, it does open up some opportunities, some land that was currently unsewered. So it's kind of a mixed blessing, if you will. Because the cost share does bring that cost down for them, but again, was mandated. So just want to highlight that as the third project. I'm doing two here. Number 4, looking at Carter Lake. In our conversations with Carter Lake, we understand they have a number of water and sewer challenges that they're facing right now. They're already addressing some of those challenges, but one of the areas they discussed or shared with us was water main replacements and repairs. A very high level number of $2 million was put on this. It could be much higher than that, but again, we're trying to put a ballpark on that so we understand what this cost could be. A lot of this is due to deferred maintenance. And so looking at, first doing some kind of study to understand the extent of the need for repair or replacement, and then going in and doing those actual improvements. Number 5 is Crescent, looking at the mandated sewer improvements. Currently, price tag at about $4.75 million. This is a compliance issue. The Iowa DNR has issued a MPDS permit, which is basically requiring them to improve their water quality. So this has been, I know, a challenge for them for a long time, and now they're up against a deadline to make these improvements. They have a really small bonding capacity, and Adam can kind of speak to the challenges and the worries of using bonding for your sewer projects.
Yeah, so water and sewer projects, we really emphasize those projects being funded through the SRF program, through revenue bonds, and or you can even do general obligation revenue bonds. But either way, the revenue bonds do not impact your bonding capacity. But when you do revenue bonds, those go on the utilities, and you have to make sure you are charging enough in your utility rates to cover operations, your debt service, and have a coverage factor of 1.1%. So you have to have more than 10% coverage on that. At a project with the size of this one and the size of the community, it impacts utility rates immensely. So then if you go into it from a GO side, so general obligation on property taxes, your issue with that is that you can't do anything else with it. If it eats up your bonding capacity, you're not doing any road projects, you're not doing any community improvement or betterment projects or anything like that. So that's why we really encourage local governments to do revenue bonds when they're doing water and sewer projects.
And as I mentioned earlier with Crescent, we know the current rates are, the average monthly bill is about $50 a month. And without any kind of support at this point, we know that those costs are going to go up about $100, $120 without any kind of grant or anything to kind of offset those costs. So again, looking at all kind of funding sources, there was an application to the watershed protection project through IFA, the WIF program that was just submitted recently, and we'll see where that goes. That would definitely provide, I believe, upwards of $3 million towards this project. That would be fantastic. Because right now this 4.75, my understanding is actually considered low. It's probably get closer to 5 to 6 based on again, construction costs and everything we see right now in the market. So the sixth and final project here noted is the city of McClellan. McClellan is a very small community, and they have some issues with their water pressure, so water distribution improvement study. Is to see what could be done to improve it. Currently, their water, they lease their franchise rights to Regional Water. So actually, Regional Water would be the responsible party for these improvements, which is kind of why there's the extra asterisk there at the end. It would be Regional Water who have to apply for the funds and work kind of in partnership with the city. So that one may be a little more challenging to execute, but definitely, again, they're a community that's relatively small compared to all the other communities in the county. Their income level is their LMI. They're basically not LMI eligible. So then it makes it difficult for them to apply for funding to make any kinds of improvements that's feasible for the community. So that is the 6 projects we've identified through this program. We also want to identify just a couple of other things to consider. We know that housing was, again, one of the top issues amongst the communities. And again, while housing is eligible, it has to be targeted at affordable housing. The workforce housing tax credit program at the state, it's in its 7th year, I believe. And the legislature this year made some changes to the program, whereas Pottawatomie County was considered a large urban county in the past. It still is considered a large urban county, but there is criteria now that allows for smaller communities within that county to be eligible for the full credit of the program. So instead of only receiving $15,000 tax credits towards a new unit, communities that are less than 2,500 population, is that right? 2,500, and have not seen a population growth of less than 30% over the last decade would be eligible for the small city set-aside funds, which at the state level, there will be $17.5 million in state tax credits this year for small cities, just for small cities. And so that means your smaller communities in the county will have full access to those funds versus the kind of the half credit they were received in previous years. And talking with some of the communities, I think that will be a huge opportunity for some projects that just currently have been infeasible in the past. This will definitely make them feasible. And then again, we've talked quite a bit about the bipartisan infrastructure law. Previously, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. 30% of funding, we'll see a 30% increase in funding at least allocated to our MPOs and our RPAs. So RPA 18, which is overseen by MAPA, they should see a 30% increase in their funds, which could help support some of these projects, these road projects, and that aren't directly impacting with our other funds here. We also know that there is some overlap with ARPA funding with the state revolving loan fund for drinking water. We kind of alluded to that as well, with some of the opportunity for some of the forgivable loans, up to 49% is what we were hearing. So again, while we really focused on water and sewer, we want to make sure that we're providing a little more context to what else is out there, what else we could possibly point these communities to for funding. With that, it's kind of open for discussion and questions.
How recent was that? And maybe, Brian, you might know this answer, but the Crescent cost, like how realistic is that cost?
Very realistic, yes. I guess to say full disclosure, McClure is working with the community right now. We just were brought on the last, I don't know, less than 6 months.
Okay.
And I think part of these conversations with the community, understanding that those needs, that 4.75 is current, but again, we know that it's likely to be closer to 5 to 6, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Just because of the extent of it.
You see a lot of these communities will be the biggest growth in our county.
Mm-hmm.
So infrastructure is so important in getting some of these funds.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would be curious, I'm gonna fire away, just go right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Trainer, I get it, I don't understand because there was 2 projects brought to the table when Michelle came. We have the connection project, which is very important, but we also, and I'm just looking at a mirror image, we also have the wastewater treatment facility. We know ours is going in at 5.6 million. We know we're under the LMI. We know we're going to the SRF. We know that the project is going to raise the sewer rates to about 110 to 120. So we're trying to creatively finance whatever we can through that. We're not going to go through the geo bonding to take away the bonding the capacity. We're going to sit there and look at the revenue bond. This 49%, up to 49% forgiveness is like right off the press. I mean, it's relatively new. So we're working with Maggie Berger and Spear Financial right now. May 9th, we have the meeting. I guess the question I have is, if that's a priority, where, without arguing, where did trainers not fit in? just because we had two of them and we elevated one to the other, because we're working on two different things, doesn't mean it's not there. So, and it's real, I mean, it's going in, we're probably, I won't say a light year ahead of Crescent, but we're in that same ballpark, knowing that construction will be done in 2023. JEO is actually, taking care of that, so.
Yeah.
My question is, how does it differ? I think they're all eligible, everybody should have a fighting chance at this money, and to sit there and say, okay, Crescent gets 4.3, not 4.3, but that's the eligible, the cost, which by the way, 4.7 or whatever it is, that's way low. I'm gonna tell you that that's exponentially growing as we speak. So with the, in construction costs, I mean, you know that that's probably gonna be 4.9, 4 point, it could be 5 point, right, anywhere in that range within months. So I guess the question I have is then, how do you determine, in the LMI, that's the first time I've seen Trainer, which was kind of nice. The figures I saw, 33%. LMI, I've seen much lower. So that's actually nice to see that we were actually high enough to reach 33. We're not disadvantaged community. So that brings the same argument. We can't get into the CDBG world that doesn't exist for Trainer. So now I'm looking at franchising fees. I've got 25-year contracts with Mid-American, and I'm looking at all sorts of creative ways to sit there and lower that rate. This is absolutely the place to come to. And just because we had it in two different buckets, I mean, there was two different priority projects, all of a sudden Trainers dropped from one and not the other. I'm curious, just trying to figure out how would you ever determine that as a county?
No, and I would say, that was an error on our part, I guess, because I think when we were going through the funnel and going through the projects, we actually focused more on your other project, your Heartland
Which is
road.
fine, I appreciate that.
And not to say that this sewer project, I think is definitely eligible and should be considered. So I would, again, that's the apology on our part, because really, again, it was part of that funnel process. It just, we focused on that over the other.
Well, and I think there is some consideration too to look at that when you talk about the ARPA funding and the road construction, and I know Matt Wyatt's over here, it is not completely ineligible out of it. I understand that it's tied to it, but as we looked at the Heartland connection, we were looking at the ARPA, the NEU, the smaller funds to help propel that whole project, because it obviously needs water, sewer, and stormwater, all of that infrastructure. It's one package deal, and it was actually a lower project to bring to the county than wastewater. We didn't bring that as the number one project because we weren't trying to overwhelm the process, thinking that all communities in Pot County should be eligible for some of this money.
Michael, isn't that TIF eligible?
Which part?
The new development there?
That is not, the Heartland connection is not at this point TIF eligible the way it is. I've got another TIF project in the works, and we're just finishing up on one that we got just done, but the particular road, Heartland Connection, runs through a Vision Trainer grounds, which is owned by, so right now it is not, at this point, TIF eligible.
I do think though, Mike, you kind of hit it on the head with what you're saying about the overwhelming scope of what this has brought out. Having McClure, having Michelle and Paula's team out there talking to the small communities and figuring out what the needs of them are. It is very overwhelming to see the water and sewer infrastructure needs that are in these communities. And we all understand that even when you look at the amount of ARPA funding that Pottawatomie County was awarded, it's not near the tip of the iceberg to tackle all these. And what they were showing up there was the total cost of what these projects are. It didn't really dive real deep into the fact of, well, we would take this project and we would apply for funds through here and bring, it wasn't a financial package for each one of those to say, and then we would need maybe, $100,000 of ARPA funding to push it over the edge to make it actually happen. Because when we originally started this off, that's, as they had designed ARPA in the beginning, there was the original allotment that was going to come to the communities, and then there were 6 other buckets that they had set up that were competitive funding that you could apply for, and that's how we kind of started down this path. And as we were doing that, the rules and everything from the federal level were changing just as fast as we were out doing the interviews. And it turns out, well, those competitive buckets are actually out the window. They're not even necessarily going to be there, but there may be some competitive opportunities at the state level. And so we're still trying to align up everything that is in there. And it would be overwhelming for the Board of Supervisors. It'd be, I don't know how a person would go about doing it either. That's why we bring in McClure to tell us which one of these projects are, actually going to be eligible to meet the need of what we can, give a little bit of ARPA funding to it to make it happen. And, if I was looking at, maybe it was something on yours that the funding is you're already running down the system of funding, so your financial package was on that one project. But it wasn't meant to be a deterrent to any community out there on it, but we really, the scope of what we have going on is large, and it's a very tiny amount of funding that goes with it, but we still have to have this plan in place, because if we don't have the plan in place, then we can't go after the federal funds, we can't go after the state funds to then contribute these things too. So it's one step in a process, I guess is what I would get at.
Right, and I'm glad that Matt clarified that, because this program it was never meant to position the county where they had to pick one community over the other. It is priority projects. Each community have to, these vetted projects, they have to have skin in the game. They have to participate. McClure are the experts, in the infrastructure funding, state and local level, and, we're out there to assist them, and that's what we're gonna do with each community. So Michael, your community is definitely not excluded. We were happy to sit down and chat about that. And again, the county, it's kind of first come, first serve. Who's ready to apply for these projects, and how can we use the funding in the capital stack to get them done?
I guess that was the counter argument was, and I'm okay with that. I think everybody, that you guys did a fantastic job. But I'm saying, if we're gonna look at the communities and who's ready, project ready and ready to go, both of them, and actually the wastewater treatment facility is ahead of the Heartland Connection that we, as a priority one. And we are up against a mandate with the wastewater treatment facility. I mean, there's no doubt. They're threatening administrative order. We're keeping them off our back, just like Crescent is for the same reason. But we're looking at you had $50 ratepayer at the current level. We're sitting there at about 30, and it probably was too low when I came in. But we're looking 30 to go all the way to, as you've seen, some of these rates for a town of 1,000 to go to $110 to $120 if we don't come up with, and that's totally, I mean, that, consumers will, you just know. I mean, Crescent knows, and we know that can't happen. So we're looking everywhere.
And just to give the board a little context or reminder of it, so we looked at about 58 water and sewer projects and totaling approximately about $100 million in total project cost. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the scope of the need in the rural parts of this county.
I was kind of wondering, you mentioned in there transportation, would you have reference to that for?
So I would say that originally, a lot of the communities you talked to, the street repair, street maintenance were just kind of deferred for whatever reason. Some councils decided they wanted to hold off on it and over the years, and so then now they have 3 or 4 years, 5 years of deferred maintenance on their roads, and now they don't have the funds to make all those improvements. And so, talking with the communities, some of the things that they had identified or asked us is if we could help create a process of doing capital improvement, kind of smaller capital improvement plans, specifically for roads in the communities. And so that again was highlighted as one of the potential needs or opportunities to use ARPA funds for. Going back through, looking at, again, this final rule came down in January and is effective April 1 of what the eligibility is for these funds. We really want to focus heavily on what the guidance says and don't veer away from that and get you guys in any trouble. And really kind of said, well, let's look for other funding sources out there, like the Infrastructure Act that's coming through. And we do know that, MAPA does provide strategic planning services, and they can maybe go a step further and focus on doing road, more of a CIP for the roads in these communities as well. So again, using our partners here in the region to make sure we're providing the services needed by the communities.
If you take a look at the projects that some of these cities have identified, at how many of them are ready to actually apply for a grant?
There's, if we're talking about water and sewer,
Yes.
water and sewer, I would say maybe, like, today, probably a third of them. Because there's certain level of, they know there's a need, but they don't know what they couldn't describe it. Like, they don't have a report, they don't have.
Haven't studied it
Haven't
yet.
studied it officially to know what the need is. And so that's where you have to get into, going after getting that study done, which takes anywhere from, 4 to 6 months just on a study. And then if you go from a study to design, you're going from 6 months to possibly a year. And then from there, you go, in that process, you're going through all the steps to get the funding lined up as well. So in about 18 months, you could probably go from study to start implementation and construction. So again, our timeline here is funds have to be obligated by 2024, have to be spent by end of 2026. So we have a really, a 4.5 year time frame here to do that.
The cities that are working on the process, are they doing it on their own as far as submitting grants, or is McClure working with them on those? Or is some other group working with them?
Well, the intent is that we would work with them at this point, and we know that there are other firms that are working with them as well, so we would collaborate with other service providers, whether that is a competing engineering firm or if it's another agency in the county, would definitely support them.
Okay. If you take a look, you submitted a lot of grants, I would assume.
Yeah.
For projects all over. Would the grantor look more favorable to a project that's in need versus one because they have a project because of lack of maintenance or deferred maintenance?
I think need is definitely preferred, but sometimes it's kind of a mix of need and deferred maintenance. It's the last water administrator wasn't doing their job properly or something to effect of, it was, unintentional deferred maintenance, if you will. So some of I would say a majority of the water and sewer projects are just a matter of the funding available. There's just not the funding available to do the work, so they did put it off. They put it off until they have to do it because they didn't have the money to do it. Now they're at a point where they're mandated, or there's an actual need. The plant is not working properly, or something to where the deferred maintenance has gone into actually something breaking down. So again, when you're writing a grant, you don't typically focus on that piece of it. You really focus on the need. You focus on again, partnerships. So obviously we have a great collaboration of all the different agencies working together, which really shows well on applications. Definitely when you have layered funding on projects, it shows well for applications. So that's kind of where we feel strong that this is a good opportunity for some of these funding courses.
So, in the future, hypothetically, are you allowed, or could they put up what I would refer to as a sinking fund when they originally built these? That they would have some funds available to make these upgrades or do some improvements along the way? Or is that not allowed by our law?
So
you don't.
So, I mean,
Just by the very virtue of what you said, sinking funds, you've already, that's a very touchy. But yes, there are, yes, creative ways to say not sinking,
Right.
but put money aside, yeah. There is, to the level of small communities, like for these wastewater treatment facilities, I don't think they could ever put enough money away to meet, like for the one we're talking about is an ammonia compliance. And that's fairly normal, that's an Iowa thing, and I understand that. And it's been going on in a lot of these small communities. And even when I went to Des Moines, when we sat with the Iowa League, with the governor, I asked the very question that we're talking about now, and said, can you help us back off IDNR? And you know what her answer was? They even called her Queen Kim at the table, but Queen Kim said, I can't do a thing. If IDNR says it's gotta be mandated and it's gotta go, then we've gotta do something with it. So which is why when I came in 2020, you asked about ready, Justin, and that In 2020, what he's talking about, and they're describing those design phases and those studies, like for this particular project for Trainer, we're done. I mean, we're through that phase already. The design is a lemma design and ready to go. So now we're looking at the funding. So it is in process. I mean, this is something that had to be done even before they invented the word ARPA.
And I'll speak to that too, you know, what Michael was saying. Communities have, over long periods of time, kept their rates low artificially, or they just haven't raised them, I should say. They stayed at one point and they decided to never incrementally increase them. Now we're at a point where a lot of communities, they should have increased them because now they need to increase substantially, and it's how it looks bad that they are increasing the rates so much. But it's a matter of necessity, and so by sheer just having incremental increases over each year, it will help offset some of those costs that you were referring to before, and help support kind of future needs. But again, it's not going to cover everything. Some of these projects are so large that it's impossible to do without really burdening the customers.
DNR stepped up their
Enforcement.
targets
Yeah.
recently, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so this has happened all across Iowa.
Yeah, correct.
They said that Iowa is lacking or behind for a number of years. So all these little communities across Iowa are going through the same thing. And there's just not enough funds throughout the entire system for all these communities. So where do we go?
So I'm gonna break this conversation up a little bit.
Sure.
This will be fun. First off, you got a list that you said about $100 million worth of projects. Are we gonna be provided that list and kind of a general idea of what?
Yeah.
What they
And
cost?
that's partly the list that was provided to us from you know, Golden Hills. It was kind of, we put some ballpark figures, some of these.
Kind of phased it out, and
Yeah.
I thought we emailed it, but we'll send it again, Justin.
Okay.
We have it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So, okay, so where I'm saying I wanna break this up a little bit is that we are focused and we're talking about ARPA right now. And I think we gotta, maybe all of us need to not necessarily get tunnel vision. The fact is that this board, you know, and the efforts that we've made over the years is that we've put ourselves in a financial position where ARPA is not the only way to get these things accomplished. We have gaming streams, we have partners. So what I'd like to do, I mean, because unfortunately we get to be the people up here that pick winners and losers, and people love us or hate us based on what we do with that. And that's part of the job, it's what we gotta do. But the reality is that there are important projects that may not necessarily meet your list, which is fine.
Yep.
But I think this board needs to take a hard look and say, okay, where can we leverage other funds that we have to help with these other projects that are out there? So I don't want the takeaway from this to be that this is the only list and this is the only thing we're gonna do, because that's just not reality. I'm just telling you right now, I'm looking at this right now and thinking, well, okay, great, but there's a lot of other things we gotta do. So I think this is a good start, kind of what Matt said earlier. I think we take this list back. I think we as a board need to have another kind of capital projects discussion. We need to talk with our partners and see what potentially is available out there in the future, and then get back with these communities and say, okay, here's what we're going to do right now. Here's what we're gonna do in 5 years. Here's what we're gonna do long term. You know, how can we help you? So I just, like I said, I don't wanna just get tunnel vision on ARPA right now, because it's not the only funding stream to make some of these things happen. And then, shoot, there's other grants out there that we can go after too. There's a lot. We have a vendor that we use right now that's helping us write grants for several of the projects right now that we can probably get
Which
involved
is
as well.
exactly why we have McClure
Yeah.
engaged, because they can identify those other financial incentives as
So
well.
I'm interested to see that list. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll email that to you.
Yeah.
And I know we've taken up more than our allotted time, so thank you for your patience on that. Are there any more questions?
No, when can we expect to see some positive movement on the grant applications and the grant awards for some of these projects where we can actually see if we can fit it into any of the funds that the county has for these kind of projects?
I think the next steps are, you know, we were to present kind of this list And again, this list can be changed, altered, it's your discretion, but this is the list that we kind of presented you with. And then the next steps from there are to say, okay, if we're gonna go after these pursuits, we're gonna look at what's all available for these pursuits, how do we apply ARPA funds to these pursuits and other funding sources.
And what are some, the matching components
Yep.
of it that
Yep.
the county funding may come into play?
When will your next visit with us be?
What do you think?
I mean, I don't have a date in mind, I guess in the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I was thinking 30 days,
And will, you think you'll have some,
maybe a little bit more information.
some possible grants for some of these
Yeah.
projects?
I think we could definitely follow up and keep you updated on that, and then we can see if we want to try to come back at that time.
Yeah, and we'll get that scheduled.
Now, the U.S. rural development isn't, I mean, I gotta believe they're aware of these situations in our communities across the state. Are there opportunities for them to?
With USDA, rural development, you know, I need to be updated on what more they have available. I know they've been kind of given some additional funds. And again, Adam's talked a little bit about the pros and cons of USDA being that if you take the grant, you take the loan terms aren't necessarily as favorable as a SRF, but you get a grant, so it's kind of the, how do you
Those terms aren't as favorable in the interest side of it, is that what you're
yes.
saying? Okay.
As SRF, yeah.
Okay.
So there's some trade-offs there, so looking at, how do we calculate the differences and the benefits thereof from each of those different programs.
Well, isn't it true this loan forgiveness too is streamlined through the SRF process? So it wouldn't be if you took a USDA RD route or wastewater treatment facility route, that forgiveness wouldn't be there?
Yeah, so it's kind of one or the other.
49%, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we were told 20 to 49%
Yeah.
by Maggie, so we have no idea. It's a sliding scale, and
Okay.
we don't know what that's going to be.
And it's kind of, and you're doing one or the other. You're funding your project through SRF, or if you qualify, you're funding your project through USDA and the programs that they have there. And again, you can't, like, the carrot that USDA has is they have grants associated with their projects, but you can't take the grants unless you take the loans. And the loans don't have quite as favorable terms, so it's really just an evaluation with your financial advisor on really what works out.
And that's not something you guys can do for these communities then?
No, I mean, it absolutely is.
At a high level, yes. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, those different, I guess, vehicles, I'll call them, of these projects, and if you can give us some scenarios for each of the projects, I think it's.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the next step.
You'll
So-
get that list with some numbers on it.
Yep.
You make sure the board has a copy of this presentation.
Yes, and can I just say one more thing? I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors for your support, obviously for the idea generation, for the Iowa West Foundation. It's, the funding's nice, but their support is priority. So I thank everybody that's been involved. I think this model, other areas of the state are looking at. I think Brenda gave a presentation not long ago, and people are really interested in this model that we've created here. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome to stay for the rest of this meeting. It'll probably take till 2 o'clock.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure thing.
I'll give you a minute if you want to.
I'll get you on YouTube. Get you on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
No, other side of the state near Cedar Rapids. Yep.
Okay. Next up, John Matheson, discussion decision to approve and authorize the board to sign resolution 31-2022 for support of the Magnolia Road Rise Grant application. John, you're up.
Sure, that's just a resolution of support, goes in my grant application for the RISE project.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. I do have one question though. So where does that stop? Like, where's the road, where are you gonna stop the pavement, I guess?
Out to L55, so it'll go from Railroad Highway out to the road that goes to McClellan, just past the interstate. Yeah.
And so there's two grants out there nowadays. One's called a raise, the other one's called a rise. I didn't realize they were both still out there. So can you give me a quick distinction between the raise and the rise?
I don't know if I know the raise so well. Within RISE, there's an immediate opportunity and a development one, and there's
Okay.
different fundings in there, but I'm not familiar with raise.
But the other one hasn't been there very long. The rise grant's been there for a long time.
Yeah, RISE has been there quite a while. A lot of times that doesn't get spent and gets reallocated back to the county.
Did
So these are like formerly Tiger
we not
grants.
do a rise grant just recently?
We are doing a RISE.
Down at,
We did one 182nd Street, yeah.
okay.
So one of them's 50% match, the other one has a 80% match, but you have to prove job creation. So we're going after the 50%.
Okay. I assume they were gonna do one down in South Avenue down here, okay.
John, you said it's on the east side of
Like they're Tiger
the
grants.
McClellan Road?
Yeah.
Does that include the bridge from the interstate?
Yes, we'll work through the interstate bridge and try to do those approaches, but there's a header out there where the pavement type changes, so we just want to end there, because it's
Okay.
where somebody else ended before, I guess. No
Okay,
better reason.
yeah. All right.
No, I.
We got that.
Oh, yeah. All right. We have a motion. Mr. Hauser, call the roll, please.
Chairman Wickman. Supervisors Bell. Roby. Schultz. And Shay.
All right.
All right, next up, John Rasmussen, our engineer, Leanne Gifford, county attorney. Discussion and or decision to approve the draft special assessment policy to facilitate a uniform and consistent petition process. Leanne, you are up.
Thank you. As you know, we changed the policy, I believe it's back in August, September. And then we had a few applications after that or petitions, and we realized that we need to work on the policy more. So we've looked at this. We decided it would be very helpful to have a pre-petition meeting where we would meet with the people wanting to have the road improvement district and kind of resolve any questions, issues, and everything ahead of time so that we won't have problems when we come before the board. We'll make sure they understand the number of signatures they would need to get, who should be and should not be included in such a district, and things like that. Then also when there's a proposed district that has a substantial difference in assessed valuation of properties, we are proposing that the apportionment, instead of being equal to each parcel, be based on assessed value. Typically, we see road improvement projects in other parts of the state anyway. It's usually just kind of a subdivision development, so everybody has about equal value. But some of the petitions that we received, you've got some more rural, ag land or very small housing, and then some very large houses. So that the board, I know, had some concerns about how much each person should be assessed. So this kind of clarifies that. The pre-petition meeting, that would be discussed with the petitioners so that, they could decide what they believe would be most likely, what they would think is most likely to be successful in terms of obtaining the proper number of signatures.
So, I just got a couple. On number 5, it says the petition may not be withdrawn. Should that be shall not?
Number 6, right?
Number 5 on mine.
Are we,
It's number 6.
Oh, it's
Oh,
number
okay,
6
okay.
now, yeah. I guess it is on your new one here. Should that be a shall?
we could
rather-
change that to a shall.
And then on number, well, there, look. Is that number 13 should 13 be the same way then?
supervisors?
No, because the supervisors has a number of options, so you can reject it, you can approve it, you can modify it and approve it, or you can add or exclude parcels.
Good,
So that's just listing what your options are.
good.
Can I ask a question?
Pardon?
Can I ask a question or not?
Did you sign up for,
I signed.
okay, we'll take this. Go ahead,
I can talk.
go ahead.
Can you show me on number 9 what that half mile beyond the cul-de-sac or dead end would look like?
On what?
What?
On what?
On number 9, on the,
It says that the district cannot extend more than a half a mile from each side of the road and a half a mile beyond a cul-de-sac or a dead end.
so is it on the roadway this wide, or is it on the roadway in a semicircle?
I would say that it would be on each side of the road. It says on each side of the road. On each side of the road.
I guess what I'm trying to ask, the end of the road is the side of the road. So is it just going to extend down as wide as what the roadway is for a half a mile? Picking up any houses on each side of the road?
Okay. I think that's kind of how you were,
When we wrote the last petition, we went from the end of the road a half mile.
right.
I think the specific case she's talking about is the public road ends and it becomes a private road. So how do you account for that, I guess?
Is it the
That
width
would
of the
be from the
road?
county road, correct?
Right, so the Iowa code, sorry, trying to get it up here so everybody can see the same stuff. We're having some difficulty. So the code allows a half mile beyond the right of way, but the right of way ends, there it is, awkwardly, I guess. Is it legible? This looks bigger. Sorry, now we're all at least looking at the same thing. It looks fuzzy, but. So I guess the question is, does it go beyond the end of the road on a cul-de-sac? Another half mile? So it's half mile either side of the right of way.
If there's an accessible driveway there, yes, I would say so.
Yeah, I think that's what we're intending in the policy.
So it's
But if
like
it dead ends there, then it'd be,
a half circle?
yeah,
Okay.
half mile, yeah.
What if part of somebody's property is in that semicircle? Are they pulled in? Are they left out?
When we were looking at it, we were looking at, perhaps it isn't in here clear, that if the parcel, the access to the road is on the road that's proposed to be improved, then we would include it. But if you're just catching the corner of some property, but the access to that parcel is a completely different road, we would not include that.
Okay.
So as
I
long
agree
as
with that.
their property falls even a little bit within that half circle, and the only way they have out is through that private road to the public road, they would be counted in.
Yeah.
If they are, yes, if they are
Okay.
using the
Accessible.
proposed road.
I'm just asking questions to get some clarification. I'm not trying to argue anything. I'm
No.
just-
So, yeah, the point of petition for Leanne and I is just trying to organize the petitions before they get to you, I guess. So we had a couple public hearings, we took comments outside of public hearings, we've had meetings, so, and listen to you guys. So we're just trying to whittle this down and what you guys would like to see, and that's the point of the policy, is what do you guys want to see? So, going through that, probably the biggies for you decided is probably number 8, county participation. So I used to do it 100%, Iowa code was 50%.
No, you're talking about number 4, where the number of signatures, a percent of signatures?
No, the participation by the county.
Oh, okay.
I think the number of signatures, we're only gonna get, that's just gonna be a case-by-case review of the petition, I think, and the parcels within it. What do you think? We didn't rehearse this, by the way, obviously.
Clearly not.
Let's just stick to the one and you can go back to the other.
Okay.
So kind of the question I have for the board is, do you want to do a 50% participation? So that means,
It says no more than 50%.
By
I'm
statute,
sorry, Leanne was right.
Of
I don't
course I
want to
was.
restrict ourselves.
Frame that. Number 4, yes, 50% of the owners, so 50% is the minimum ownership. I once used 100, and everything worked really smoothly.
Because it never ever happened.
Exactly. But it got paid for. So that number is kind of the number for you guys to consider as far as the petitions. I've heard 75%, but everything but above 50 is really a political decision, not really an engineer or an attorney. Do we agree on that one?
Yes.
Yes, we agree on that one. So 50% is your minimum by code. Obviously, the higher the percentage gets, the less trouble you have getting these passed too.
I say 50%. That's Iowa code. Scott,
What's that?
50% on number 4? Justin?
I don't know.
Yeah, and this is a fun one to get to you. You guys still have the hearings and have to make decisions. This is just trying
Yeah, but
for me to communicate with the
are you removing
petitioners.
that language that restricts us from changing, if we want to go above that, we can?
Right.
Okay.
That would be item 13, the way I read it. It says the board can reject, approve, modify, or approve the petition. We can do anything we want to, right?
Correct. Once the petition gets to you guys and you have the hearings, you can do whatever you want with it.
Then I'm
We're
fine
just
with that.
asking if you wanted a narrower funnel on number 4, if you wanted to see more than half the people signing, saying they agree with having the assessment district established.
Yeah, I mean, there might be cases where it'd be advantageous for us to go ahead and move forward with doing that, you know, being more, higher percent owner of it, so.
This is really policy we're setting so that they can at least come forward.
Yeah,
We
I
can-
just, all I'm saying is I don't want to handcuff ourselves to the point we can't amend this policy. So if that's, you know what I'm saying? As long
And
as we
that
can.
goes back to 13, correct?
I don't know, let's see here.
13 is on the particular petitions. You guys can amend policy pretty much whenever you want. I mean, obviously, we changed the policy, you know, less than a year ago, realized it wasn't working, and that's why we're in front of you again now.
Let me ask you a question, Leanne. Let's just say that a particular owner has 5 buildable lots on this road. None of them are built on. Does this person have 5 votes?
Yes.
5 pieces of property.
Right.
Let's say the minimum assessment is 1,000. So he would have $1,000 on each one of those 5 as well?
If that's what is the apportionment, yes.
Similar to his question, so,
Can I just back up and clarify one thing? You're talking about separate parcels, because a lot and a parcel are 2 separate things. You can have a number of buildable lots, but it's one tax parcel.
Well, okay,
So the splits of, you're saying the splits have already would have had to happen.
that's correct.
Right, it can be
They'll
split.
all have their own parcel number.
Okay, yes, as long as they have their own taxable parcel number, they're each considered to have 1 vote, no matter how many owners, and they would each be assessed.
I show you something on the dollar amounts when you go from low to high and how the high-end people are paying way less than the low-end people based on their mathematical numbers.
Could we just save questions to the end? I think,
Okay, that's fine.
I'd like to show them how it works.
No, that's fine.
Hate to interrupt you. Can you go to the next slide? So obviously, the next question for you is, we broke down, basically the county's participations by vehicle count. So we just get that off traffic maps. That's well published. I'd like to continue with that. If you go to the next one. So in our policy on, what section was that? In section 10, you guys wanted to go with basically making the allocations to pay for the district based on taxable value. And the problem with that is every single person's a unique value. So what we've done is we kind of made these brackets here. So the highest property in the district would pay, 10 times what the lowest was. So these are just some example data that I've pulled together in different districts I've been asked about. Blanked out the owner's name, so you can kind of see how some of these work. This one here worked out fairly well, I guess, depending. The average value of the district was $154,000. There was 58 owners in just about 2 miles. So what we do is we get the average price based on just the cost of the improvement divided by the number of owners. Then we apply these brackets to them. So these people up here, they're paying 20%. And these people down here are paying 200% of the average allocation. So somewhere we kind of just need to draw a top and a bottom. And really what this did is it gave you 5 different assessments in a district. So we're just limiting the assessments to 5. So that's just how that one worked out. Same thing over here. This one's got a lot more people, but the thing's changing. Most of this is agricultural land. You can see by the values here. There's not a lot of value in those parcels. So that really pushed the cost down to just a few homeowners in that segment of the road and didn't put too much on the developed land. I guess that's another kind of a political decision. How low do you want to go with the minimum and how high? And I just grabbed the percentages there to make it work.
And these are divided over a 10-year period.
Over a 10-year period.
If the assessment is more than $500 total, then they can pay over a 10-year period.
Okay.
All of this would be determined by project in a pre-petition meeting.
Oh, in terms of
The
how it,
values.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to, the petitioners, of course, always want to know the cost. I'm trying to figure out how to get them costs, I guess. And there's just a couple more there. And some districts are going to work out. I don't know. I guess everybody has a different limit of feasible, but I just don't think, if a district doesn't make sense on paper, it still doesn't make sense. Can't see you putting a 2,000 a year assessment on a $300,000 house. It's still not going to work for everybody. It's just a way of making those assessments. And I don't know what that top end reasonable number is. So that's kind of what the breakdown we have in this policy would look like as far as landowners on that. But it's absolutely the case. Every one of these is going to be different. And that's why I did so many examples, I guess, just to see how they penciled out. There's a huge difference between a $750,000 property and a $5,400 property. So somehow I got to fit all that into a simple scale. If somebody's applying dust control, they're spending about $400 a year. But
You're pretty close there though, aren't you?
yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinion and threshold, I guess. It's just something I'm trying to bracket down.
Kim, do you want to make a comment?
Yes.
Make sure it's specific to the policy and not to the. Okay.
I want to go back to the top. It says you should refer to the Iowa Code 311 for definitions and lawful application of these road improvements. So if there's a inconsistency between this policy you're getting and 311, which presides over what decision is made? Is it 311 or is it your policy? Since 311 is the state code.
I will have to take another look at that. I think that chapter in that code is so bland, and it leaves a lot of things up to the discretion of this board. So, if there was a specific question on that chapter that I can help answer for you, I'd be happy to do that. I might not be able to do it in this meeting, but I'll be able to do it for you.
I have a number of questions, but back to the side of the road and private road or easement access. If there's a private road or easement access to each side, and it goes beyond the half a mile, the way they have it written, you have to include those properties that are going through that easement or private road, even though they're beyond the half a mile, according to code 311.
And they're getting access from that road.
Right,
I agree.
even though they're beyond the half a mile. How are you gonna determine that without financial burden toward the county? Because you have to do title searches for some of these easements to get past those properties that go that far.
Iowa code's gonna govern on over the policy, right? Our policy is really just getting us into the process. I mean, the process still is what it is, in my opinion. As far as easements to get back into that, I don't see us going further than a half mile, so I don't know if.
So then we wouldn't be able to
Saying
go.
if there's a long driveway and they do come off that road, they should
That's
be
their only
included in
access.
it.
Right, but if they're further than a half mile, I don't know that we can
Leanne, do
consider.
we need to put something else in there for that?
Because that would go back to the end of the road situation, would be the same thing.
Or
Versus-
access, and or access from that county road?
I think she's already got that in there. Yeah, under number 11. Parcels with
Yeah.
access via
Right.
easement or private road are not subject to this exclusion.
Right.
So, according to 311, you can only go a half mile each side. But if you have a property or a parcel that is beyond that, the only access is to that road, do you include that then?
I would say we do, wouldn't you?
Do we need?
That's the access.
I mean, this is up as discussion, so we don't have to resolve or pass anything.
Okay.
I guess if there's questions to be
I mean,
resolved.
if it's accesses from that road,
We were looking at when we were developing this as, you know, if that's someone's only access to any county road, then equitably, it only seemed fair that they be included, because otherwise they're using this road to gain access to their property, but yet they're not going to be paying for any of the improvements of it. And that seems to be pretty much the idea of the road assessment district. Those who have the most use of the property, which would be the people owning parcels along it, would be the ones who would pay for it. So that was our thinking behind it. The chapter 311 is poorly written. There are a lot of things that are not well defined. And so that was a decision that we made on how to handle this. If the board disagrees with that, we can certainly change that, because it really is kind of a policy decision.
Well, if that's your only access to the property, I would think it would have to be a participant in the road. They get a vote too, don't they, or not?
Yes, then they would also have a vote.
I mean, if they're gonna want any of the public services, i.e. volunteer fire and ambulance, they're gonna want them to use that road and the private access to get those services. So they should be contributing to the, and they get a vote in the process. I mean, I don't know how you get excluded, except for, I guess, this half mile thing. I'm not sure on that.
within 10 years, with the road improved in Pot County, I see a possibility of development along a lot of those roads. We've seen it in the Crescent area. Every time there's a road improved, 2 by 2 road, we get development along there.
The building, they will come philosophy, yes.
Yes. So I think they gotta participate.
I really, I'd love to get your questions, Tim, and I'll do everything I can to get them answered for you. The really important thing for me is we have something that's gonna guide us at least for a possible couple of petitions that may be coming our way. Item 13, very specific. it says, the Board of Supervisors may reject, approve, or modify and approve the petition, including, excluding, or adding parcels to the proposed district. So, we have a lot of leeway, when these petitions come our way. Keep in mind that, we will have a pre-petition meeting before any of these, petitions make it to the board. That's the plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, that meeting, a pre-petition meeting, would be attended by a couple of board members to make sure that, you know, that, number one, we're following the law, and number two, we're following our policy, and, bring it back for discussion with the board to either approve or modify the petition. So, I think we're covered. So,
Those petition meetings that you speak of are, people that have signed the petition are involved in that or not?
it would be the, person or persons, starting the petition. We don't do it, they
Right.
do it.
To meet with the engineer and
Before,
go over a real rough cost estimate.
before they go get the petitions?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Okay.
The petition will be all, figured out what properties are included, what the assessed value is, what the estimated cost of the project, the estimated cost per landowner on each parcel. I mean, all that stuff will be taken care of, and then when they present the petition to people that live in at that area, they'll know approximately what their, commitment is to pave the, or to upgrade the road, so.
Okay.
I think it's a good start. One thing Leanne said, that, you know, we can amend this anytime we want to. So,
And part of the pre-petition meeting also is it will be made clear that the numbers as far as the apportionment per parcel, that's an estimate, and that the board has the final say. If you guys decide, you know, on the one that's 20,000, if you decide that's ridiculous, we want to cut that to 10, and then you redistribute it so that, I don't know what the zeros are up there, but maybe other people pay more to make up for the fact that you decide it's just not fair, not right, or whatever, to put a $20,000 special assessment on a parcel.
what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
And that's with the change to number 6,
Yes.
changing may to shall.
I'll second it.
It's close. Okay, any other discussion for?
Yeah, I don't like this, so, I don't know. I mean, I get it, we get to figure this out in the pre-petition meeting, we should hopefully let the homeowners know exactly where they're at. I mean, that way they're not coming here and finding out, oh, by the way, you're gonna have to pay X dollars, like we did kind of messed up last time.
But it keeps someone from coming out and building a $750,000 home and demanding that everybody pay the same amount as he does.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
I just,
You know?
my only concern is, you know, I just feel like there's a point at which, and I think that's item 13, or, you know, number 13 on here covers that, so.
Yeah, we can reject it.
Well, we can reject or change it. Like, I don't want someone paying $20,000 for, you know, some minor stretch of a road, and they're the first house on that road, you know, and then you got that whole question of really, is it really fair or not, you know, and I just think these have to be case-by-case kind of things, and so I'm just cautious to
Need
throw
some
numbers
kind
out
of
like this.
Policy to start with.
No, and I'm fine with that, so as long as 13 and, yeah.
We had some guys.
But I will
up
hold
on-
everyone here to it, that if we can need to amend this, that we will. I mean, when's the last time it was amended before us?
Never had one.
We followed the state policy at 100%. So, I mean, I'm just saying, we gotta be,
We had some people up on Badger who really complained about it and didn't like it. And they
Yeah.
told me later it was the best money they ever spent.
no, and that's generally the case, right? People get a paved road in front of their house, you never hear from them again, and they're fine. You know,
That's right.
But some aren't, and I just think we need to be representative of everyone in that respect, and I'm just really, this makes me a little cautious, that's all. But I'll go with it.
Do you want to go back to Linda? I cut her off.
Tim had one more question too.
She had a question, I cut her off.
I was just gonna show you something, how somebody had a $750,000 home. They were at 350% of the total, and, of everybody else's. They should have been paying $15,000. And because of this way they do things, they were paying less than 10. And the lower people were paying, were making up for these people at the top.
That was an example that we put together to try to give us some idea of where things would fit in a specific case on the assessed value of property on a petition that wasn't even approved by the board.
Okay.
So please keep in mind that we're open to take a look at this.
I got it from you talking.
Pardon me?
I understand it when you started talking about things, and I get it, that it's.
Yep. We're here to help you. Any way we can.
I just wanna make sure we really put that focus on this being a case-by-case kind of thing in some of these respects, because I think none of these roads are the same. I mean, there's gonna be roads where everyone on the streets can be like, yep, we'll pay our 10%, no problem, and they don't care. And there's gonna be roads where people are like, I've lived here 100 years and, I shouldn't have to do this. So I just think we need to really approach it that way and be careful.
I'm fine.
Really careful with this.
Okay, so motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now,
All right,
this
thanks.
does say draft,
Thank you.
so will there be a final later?
Yeah.
We're okay. I know
Draft,
it's hard.
we're looking at it.
Ryan.
So, yeah.
Do you want me to move forward?
No, you're gonna be really quick, so.
Alright. Hopefully it should be easy, so.
Next up, we have Ryan LaSalle, discussion or decision to approve and authorize the chairman to sign State of Iowa request for payment for the 2019 CDBG project. Ryan, you're up.
Yep, so basically the form you have in front of you is just the certification form we need to have the representative or the official representative for the grant signed, just a requested draw. So this is for the first 6 homes, both the buyout, the closing costs, all those associated fees, and then for the demolition, only because 2 of them were more recent, we just don't have proof of payment yet.
So this is providing the funding back to the county for the first phase of the flood buyout.
Correct. And it's 25% of the overall cost, and the HMGP covers the other 75%.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Ryan?
You said 6 homes?
Yep.
Okay, did you just equate with?
2 are still waiting for environmental
Right.
approval.
Okay, the numbers equate with what you guys said.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Was that Scott?
Yes.
Any other discussion for this? Ryan, I appreciate your patience.
Yeah,
All in
okay.
favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Checks in the mail?
Yeah, Ryan, if there's anything you can do to help us out with the second batch of those, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll keep looking into it too. I know they've kind of been reappropriating funds and moving around, so they let us know when they can and we try and badger them and it comes and goes, so.
You're awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. Yep.
That's right. You're welcome
Okay.
to stay for the rest of
I know, I feel like I've already seen all of it, so.
Next up, we have Matt Wyatt, Director of Planning and Zoning, and Pam Colstrup, Zoning and Land Use Coordinator, and Amy Hutfels.
Not on this one. She's not
I'm
on this
here,
one.
but I'm not on this particular
No,
item.
not this part. This is subdivision.
Oh, sorry. I knew she was coming for this. I didn't even read. Okay, this is for the final plat of the Liston subdivision in Lake Township and sign the planning and zoning resolution 2022-06. Matt, do you have any comments you want to make on this?
Didn't we approve it last month?
The preliminary
The
plat.
preliminary, this is final, allow him, he came in and spoke last time, he's excited to get building a couple homes out there, so.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. How's it call the roll?
Chairman Wickman.
Aye.
Supervisors, Melt. Groby.
Yes.
Schultz.
Aye.
And Shay.
All right.
All right. Staying in line with the agenda, Matt, you're still up. This is discussion or decision to approve the final plat of the Haneke subdivision in Norwalk Township and sign planning and zoning resolution 20-22-02. Again, we had a public hearing on this, preliminary plat was with us, this is for the final plat. Any comments, Matt, Pam? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hazard, we have a motion and a second, you call the roll, please.
Chairman Rickman.
Aye.
Supervisors Belt. Groby. Schultz.
Aye.
And Shay.
All right, now, Matt. Planning and Development, Maria Seek, Public Health Administrator, discussion and a decision will award the RFP for general contracting services for the public health building. Also, we have Amy,
Up and down arrows?
Up and down here, reach on top.
I'm gonna stand up for this one. So thanks for having us back here today. We have now reached the part where the building committee has gone through and interviewed some of the contractors for the new public health building that we're looking at doing. And I wanted to start this off by going back through a little bit about the RFP, because this is a different process than what the county has used before. Right? Normally, we have a whole set of plans already all put together. We throw it out there for bid, and that's the bid that comes in. What we're here looking for today was different in that RFP process that we talked about back on March 8th when the board approved that for release. March 25th, we extended the deadline 1 week to give some more contractors time to get some proposals in, and we did end up receiving 9 proposals for these general contracting services, which is awesome. I mean, we hadn't had something, I wasn't expecting to see it be that well received, but it really was, and they put a lot of work into these presentations that they turned in, so I thank all of them for taking the time to do that and put those together for us. On the RFP, for the proposal requirements, we were really looking for the lowest price and the most capable company, looking at their pre-construction fees, what their overhead and profit was, their general conditions, cost percentage, and then they had an opportunity for interviews with us. And so with this being a different process, I just really wanted to take that time to go back through and really think about the RFP that we put out. This was not an RFP for a building. We don't even know what this building is going to cost yet. We're getting close, but we're not to that step. We did do company interviews on April 14th. We interviewed 5 of the companies: Boyd Jones, Verana, Lund Ross, Anderson Construction, and MCL. Every one of those companies had submitted for this. We received everything that we needed to receive from them. So on that day, each company was given 20 to 25 minutes for a presentation. And then it was a 20-minute question and answer by the panel. And all of those companies, I would say, utilized that entire allotment of time. So I'm boring people already. So the presentations were really great. Each one of the companies, it gave you an opportunity to see the projects that they had done, are working on, what cost-saving measures they came into to do that. All of them, during the question and answer panel, I really felt like it was important. There was a lot of the companies that had been doing this with schools, and they had a lot of school projects in their portfolio that they're doing. So I would repeatedly ask them, is this the way the process worked with the schools that you went through? All of them said yes, the exact same process that they go through with the schools. They work with them on the pre-construction part of it, and that's what was able to really help them either meet that budget that was set out there for it, or even, on most cases, come in below budget of what it was. We also asked a lot of questions that pertained around the supply chain issues that everybody's seeing right now. What kind of creative ways are you coming up with to beat these supply chain issues that are out there? And a lot of them were all using basically the same things. They're trying to pre-order as much as they can. They knew the materials that were, 6 to 8 months to potentially get those. And they also found it very beneficial during the process like this is to be able to work hand in hand to find different things ahead of time. And then that was really keeping them from having to lose out on potential time, because time is a cost factor when you're in a construction project like this. At the end of the day, I think all of us were on the building committee were really more so impressed at the time, and it was by Boyd Jones. Boyd Jones, for their general contracting services, they are the lowest cost, and they also, during their presentation, were very innovating already towards saving cost and time. They had put a lot of thought into, you know, how could we potentially look at the exterior, because they're given very minimal things of what the building looks like. And just by that drawing, they're looking at it, well, saying, well, what can we do potentially in this in precast to throw that up there a lot quicker, you know, potentially save 30 days on a project, then, I mean, that's a huge cost savings on top of that. They were also the only contractor in the interviews and presentations that mentioned being mindful of in public use of funds. And that is always important to us as a board and department heads and the county as a whole. How do we be mindful of public funds? How do we make sure? And they have a history of successful projects that are 2 to 5% under budget for those ones. So they have a long history of working with schools. They're not new to the public use portion of this, and their history of coming in under budget, I think overall just impressed the building committee that we have put together, and that would be our recommendation right now for the board. A little bit about what would happen now is, so if the board does decide to go with them and we move forward, we will have our first cost projection on May 6th. That will give us, hey, what is this building what are we looking at for that? I've already been given the SD designs. Those SD designs will go over to whatever contractor we select out. They'll immediately start working on the preliminary budget for this. And then on May 6th, we would have that to really start honing that in then as it goes along to how do we really ratchet it down and make it something that's doable for the county. And, you know, there's no denying the need for it. Everybody's seen the scattered out places that public health is in right now. You know, we're in a lease space for a public health clinic. The rest of the people are over there with me in the annex building, and then we have our office out at Iowa Western. Office out at Iowa Western is great, and we'll remain out there, but so we're in 3 different locations. This will also help consolidate in WIC. WIC would be moving into this space with us, and then so would the medical examiner. So the medical examiner would have a place that's suitable for them as well. So we're open. You know, I have Amy and Maria here. Tim and Brian were part of the interview process too. I think we could all answer questions if any of you would have them.
What is your monthly rent payment at the offsite building?
I think we're up to almost $1,900 a month now. We were at like $1,875. It increases. I think it's set for another increase here coming up.
What's it cost per year to run that? Do you have an idea within your budget?
Utilities. It's, you know, it's not all that much. I mean, we're missing some components there. You know, we have those vaccine fridges down there, so we have like security costs on monitoring of the site, and since it's a lease space, I mean, it's not much, but it's 1,800 square feet. That's one part to understand about that spot. I mean, we have offices constructed in the lobby area of it that weren't meant to be there. We have clinic rooms that we play white noise in because the walls are so thin, you can potentially hear things on the outside of it. You know, the main services that get provided out of there is your testing, treatment, and referrals. For the STI portion of it, we do a lot of immunizations, just your regular immunizations. We do offer COVID vaccines down there now on a walk-in basis. And we have animal control. We also have an employee of the state that works out of there. There's a disease investigator from the state. Because, you know, not just COVID, but there are several other communicable diseases that we're constantly having to track people down and make sure that they get treatment for it or testing for it, and the people that they've been around, so.
So, I just need the flow chart, this whole new process. So, we pay these folks on a monthly basis, or what do we pay these Boyd Jones people to oversee this?
The only thing we pay them pre-construction would be the pre-construction fee.
The pre-construction fee.
And their pre-construction fees utilized at the.
11, okay. So, at the end of the day, is this number amount here just short of $1 million? Is that what they end up getting paid for the project?
That's not to be said yet because we don't know what the project's gonna cost. We're looking at the percentage of 2.5% of their overhead and profit fee.
Okay. So how do they control the subs? Because they can bid, but it's my understanding, so if you gotta get an electrician and a plumber and an HVC, and they don't know who those guys are yet, how do they know what the supply chain is for those guys?
That's part of the pre-construction process. Most of them will communicate with one of those subs so that they know exactly where it is in the supply chain process.
Yeah, but it's the lowest, they won't know who the sub is until they bring their bids.
But that doesn't mean pre-construction wise, they can't work with one. It still has to go to public bid, but you can still work with one to get that information ahead of time.
Right, but that might not be the one we pick.
Correct. They'd have to bid it. The bidding part hasn't, we're not to that yet.
No, but when the bidding comes, the bidding is gonna come, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of where we're gonna see this a lot. The board's gonna have a lot of bids that they're gonna have to.
Yeah, when the bidding comes, it's gonna be,
If it ain't the same one they work with, and they have issues with supply, then, I mean, it's somewhat.
Can I hop in here?
Please.
So,
I'm trying to educate myself.
yeah, no, it's totally fine. So, right now, we just finished the schematic design phase, which is just kind of conceptual. And those drawings are what whichever contractor is chosen here, will base their first set of pricing on. And they will reach out to, a couple subs to help with that pricing, understand timing, and kind of lay everything out preliminarily. No one is gonna be under contract, none of the subs, but this is like, they do it all the time. They help with budget pricing all the time, and the risk is that at the end of the game, when the final drawings are in and they're not low, they could not be chosen. That's just part of the deal, and they're all used to that. But, so the next piece is, so this first set of pricing that we'll get like on May 6th, we'll evaluate that, so we'll kind of submit something like a few days later, because we want to just make sure and qualify it all, but the next phase, so from now on forward, we have this general contractor on board in every design meeting. And so as design decisions and material selections and all of those items are being considered, we have a vocal partner as part of the team that will be constantly checking with, their different subs to and checking on and getting the information on the supply chain and that sort of thing. If a lot of the feedback that we got from actually every single contractor that we interviewed, when we asked the question, how are you combating this supply chain issue? A lot of them said early procurement, a lot. So what we can do, I think that what is smart to do is to work with the design team to release maybe an early bid package, like for maybe that item alone, to put that out to bid, and get the low bidder and procure that piece early. So say it's like the electrical piece, like electrical panels, transformer, whatever the case may be, that piece. So there's different things that we could do to try to work with that supply chain issue.
I think that we heard from a lot of those contractors that on their projects now, they're getting an opportunity to bid something and get the cost locked in. They bring that material in, whether it's a year down the road before they actually need it or not, just to keep from the cost increases that happen. Gosh, some of them happen every 6 weeks.
They carry the cost of that item for a year or better?
They would bill the owner for that. So there's a chance that if this project goes through and this board decides to do that, we could be paying for electrical equipment that could sit for a year. At least we have it. We know what happens when we don't have it.
Steel, they said, was changing price.
So we got it on the truck right now.
Well, until we have a price. We don't have a price yet.
Right, we don't have the money yet.
That's May 6th.
So I mean,
Well, May 6th, we won't have our money yet, do we? Did you
We-
already recruit all the money we need for this?
Well, we won't have it, no. I mean, that's gonna be a process that goes right along with this. And that's,
I mean, the timing of that has to be somewhat timed with this.
right, and those meetings are getting kicked off this week.
Yeah, that's our intention to kind of work on the funding sources
so
alongside this.
we do this, we pick this person or whatever. Then you come back to us May 6th with a price tag. And then that gives us an opportunity to look to see if this is even feasible within our, you know, that's kind of the process of that.
Mhm.
Okay, and so what you're saying with Boyd Jones is that their percentage of profit in overhead is the lowest, which is ideally making them the lowest bidder, because no matter what the costs are the costs, so if it costs.
Yeah, it's gonna be open book, yeah.
Right, so steel, whatever it is ends up being, that's what it's gonna be for any of these contractors, it's just this particular contractor is gonna take less of a profit, is what you're saying.
We heard that a lot in the interviews too. All the contractors were saying, you know, the cost of the building is gonna be what the cost of the building is.
So I got, are they at 2.5%, is that? Okay, alright, so this is the old one, alright. Okay. That
Yeah,
answers my question.
2.5%, you know,
So, go ahead.
that's changed quite a bit. Usually it's customary that you get, 5 to 10% overhead, on all of that stuff. They're only at 2.5, which is a half to a quarter lower than if we were to put it out for bid and get it 10%.
Yeah,
So let's just hypothetically go back to the electrician. And so when that bid package goes out for all the electrical stuff, or is it the electrician package get broke down into?
No, let's just say all of it goes out.
Okay, all of it goes out and it gets posted on all these bid boards, I hope.
Mhm.
Not the non-pro. I mean, the non-pro's okay, but all these other bid boards,
We
right?
didn't do too bad. 9. We got 9 proposals in.
Yeah, but I don't know where it was all sent out to, it wasn't just the non-pro.
Mhm.
You know, but, so it goes out to all these bid boards that they're, or listservs, or what do they call them?
Yeah, I square foot, all these different, yeah.
It goes out to all them, right?
Yes.
On top of being, they also look for small businesses and minority-owned businesses at the same time. So there's that group as well.
Right, but, so then we hopefully get back 15 electrical bids,
Mhm.
okay? Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And then we may have to pay, as Tim says, for that ahead of time, let it sit until we know we got money for it.
If we know that that's gonna be, if we know an issue of the electrical panels is gonna slow us down for a month, it's a huge cost savings to the county to yes. So it would be to go ahead, that would be a decision we would make at that time. To go ahead and buy that stuff now and get it if it came to be.
I can see that, in the HPC.
The steel, I mean.
Oh, yeah, steel, I don't know how much steel or how it's gonna be. It hasn't been
But it would all be, I mean, the whole process is gonna be very open and transparent to that. When, you know, when the bids and everything are all going, all the contractors see this process as more open and transparent to everyone involved.
We're just used to the regular bidding process.
Which
This is new to us.
I'll make that motion and move forward with Boyd Jones to award them the RFP for general contracting services.
I'll second.
Do we have the actual contract with Boyd Jones? I mean, is there an actual document?
Yes, right here.
There won't be a contract yet.
Oh, you've seen the presentation, right?
The presentation?
Is that what you want?
No, an agreement with, what the agreement with Boyd Jones says, is there?
We don't have an agreement yet. It's a standard, it would be the standard, as long as Matt's okay with it, it'd be the standard AIA 133 document. But we won't go to contract with them until we have a set guaranteed maximum price. Once the drawings are completely done and it's gone out to bid, like we won't go to contract with them yet.
So when we get the maximum price, will we agree to the contract?
Yes.
So we're gonna guarantee the contract now before we get the maximum price, is that what we're gonna do?
We are getting a service from Boyd Jones to provide us that information. Is that correct, Matt? It's a, it's not the right word. What am I looking for here, Matt? Help me out.
Well, but, I mean, the conversations I've had with Matt about chapter 26, and I'm not gonna suggest that I'm maybe a bid statute expert, but I feel like it's a pretty clear code to me. You cannot you can't divide up a project to get around the competitive bidding statute, which is, chapter 26. So you can divide the project up, but then all components are subject to the bid statute. So the theory, I think, of design build is field day plus the general contractor are, they're basically both engineering and design services at that point, which would be exempt from the requirements of chapter 26. And so the theory is that field days cost plus the percentage increase now that you're getting from the general contractor together are less than you would traditionally get through the general contractor percentage in a full bid package. So, I mean, as you've seen, contractors usually submit 5 to 10% markup on all their subs. Now you've got 2.5% markup coming from Boyd Jones. So that's the theory is that, I don't know, I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure what the, price of field day is, but the theory is that that's gonna save you money, in the long term. So this isn't a contract, that you're looking at that's required to go through the competitive bidding statute, because the general contracting services are really just involved in supervision and design at this point. Everybody that's gonna put a screw into a wall or a wire, into a junction box or a piece of concrete or a footing into the ground is gonna have to come back to you. So, I mean, the price, it's not that you're getting away from spending, you're spending your time more than money at this point, because you're gonna now have to bid, I don't know how many bids you'll have. You could have to open a dozen bids, by the time this is all over with. So it's more work for you, but the theory is that it's gonna save the taxpayers money through the process.
No, that's not my question. We're gonna approve this contract with Boyd Jones without knowing what the number is.
I haven't seen that contract, so I don't know what you're approving or
So is
not.
this coming back again to us then?
When we go to have the actual contract signed, when it gets to that point in it, yes, all that gets approved by, first it goes to legal, then it comes to you all to get approved.
Their cost is right
So-
here, Scott.
Yeah, I see that.
What you're looking for, there's no way of us giving it to you now, because we don't know a total cost of the project. That doesn't come until later. This is to approve Boyd Jones working with us through the design phase of this. And then when it comes to the point of the contract goes through legal review, comes to you, gets approved.
But I was just, okay, because usually you're gonna see, it says right, general contracting services, that we're gonna have some sort of document that we're gonna approve.
I don't think you come back and give us this cost, we can just say no anyway, so.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, really, I'm looking to Mitch a lot on this, because if urban renewal is not gonna be an option, I don't see how you get this unless your capital campaign is rock star, which I hope it is. But that's probably our only real leverage as a board to make this happen. And I don't know how much room is even there.
So our risk right now is the most we're got at risk right now is 11,500 then.
Right.
Until we come back with a contract. Is that correct? Okay.
That's the way I understand it. And actually, yeah.
No, it's the 10,080
Yeah. you're
for their
looking at the old
pre-con
sheet.
fee.
He's looking at the old one, that's why. That's what got me confused earlier too. We had to. 10,080. You have the old one.
Well, I never,
Oh, as proposed.
all the names are moving around.
Yeah, that's why I got hung up too, so.
I
So it's
didn't-
10,080.
Okay, I never received
And then
this.
there's, yeah.
I didn't get that one either.
Yeah, we both got that, Brian. I provided mine to Justin.
I just- Yeah.
I never, Matt, who, did you email me this?
No.
Somebody emailed me that.
I did email that to you as a board, yeah. That's the document that wasn't for public release that I emailed you, yeah.
Okay, and then there was this one afterwards? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm on the same page now.
Yeah,
Okay.
we get
I never saw it.
10,080 and then, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only thing we're
2.5%.
obligating to right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect,
And when they come back with that little bid, well,
okay.
We're gonna get a
All right, any other
Yeah.
discussion for Matt, Maria, or Amy?
No, I would just say that this process is obviously way different than what we're used to. So I mean, please just continue to be patient with us, because I mean, we've done different building projects and it's completely different than how this is going. So we're not trying to knock it, we're just asking a lot of random questions that may seem really easy to you, but for us, this isn't how we did it when we built the veterans building or we did
Sure.
some of these other things. So, I mean, yeah.
That's not how we did the B-Wing or
Yeah.
the.
It's just way different. The market's going this direction. I've seen this in my other capacity, and it just kind of seems like it's just different. It's okay.
Some of the contractors that we interviewed, and I can't remember which ones, but said that 70 to 80% of the projects now are
Yeah.
being done this way. So
Yeah.
it's a cost savings both for the owner and the
Which,
contractor.
personally, having these multiple bids, I think is a better scenario for us, because I think it's gonna give us a better knowledge of where we're at. You know, we don't have like the veterans building, we had a surprise electrical cost that came out of nowhere, left field, that really put us in a bind, and I think now we're gonna kind of know these things, because these contracts will be in front of our face right now, and we'll be able to pick the one we want.
Okay.
So, I see both sides of it.
Yep.
Anything else, Matt?
That's all I got for
Anything
you.
else? We have a motion and a second, all in favor of Boyd Jones, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Rocking on. Peter Dooley, Director of Veteran Affairs. Discussion decision on the updated rules and application for use of Potawatomi County property. Rita?
Hi, so I believe you guys I did have to call Jeanette yesterday and update the application that's in your packet. So it should be the one when you go to the Potawatomi County Veteran Affairs Building, PCVA, should only have 5 versus 6. Just want to verify that's what's.
Pardon me, say that again?
On the section for the PCVA building,
Yes.
notes there should only be 5 bullets versus 6.
Okay.
That's what you got, perfect. So just what this is, let's do this one first and then. So just since I took a look at what we have for contracts for recurring rental use of our multi-purpose room in the VA, they're outdated. The last approved was in 2020, they're supposed to be annually approved. So just taking a look at that, wanted to double check our rules and application for the use of the space. I made some very minor tweaks to it for just clarification of it. The only changes you'll see is going to be on page 1 of rules of use. I left Potawatomi County property 1 through 12 is the same. And then Potawatomi County Veteran Affairs Building. Section 4, use of the PCVA building may require use of a security card. Key cards will be picked up at the PCVA building. I added the additional only 1 key card authorized per organization or event. That's just in order so as we get multiple people using the building, we can adequately provide that to each organization. And then section 5, key card must be returned within the next business days of event meeting. That's again a clarification I wanted to add to it. The rest of section 5 is the same as what was on the previous edit. And then I made a change to page 3 of 6 on the, I apologize, 4 of 6. And by that, I mean 5. When it goes into Board of Supervisors decision and Veterans Commission decision, I changed what was originally on the previous edit, reasons for denial, to notes and comments on both sections for approval or denial, and that is to add clarification to any organizational specific agreements. so that we can record anything that gets written, that gets approved in a board versus just the reasons for denial. If it's denial, if it's approved, then we can add anything if there was something agreed upon during the board discussions. So really very simple changes I made on that one, just to facilitate clarification with organizations as we have the reoccurring rental usage.
You ran all these changes by your commission?
Correct, yes, we talked through them yesterday.
Commission's okay with what she's proposed?
It gives you an opportunity for a better chance for security on when people come in and out. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What's the pleasure of the board? Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not for this item, no.
This would be effective.
It would be effective after it's approved by the board, and then I would, because they're up for renewal for annual renewal for rentals, so then I would meet with the organizations that have an intent to reinstate their rental, and then it will come back to the board for each organization for their rental use.
How many you got that are doing annual review?
Well, so far right now, there was 4 on file, but I believe 2 of them are no longer going to need to be used because I believe that was for shot clinics. So then I believe there's only 2 that are, from my understanding, that are going to be renewed.
Okay, thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion for Rita? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Rita, still up. You are up for an update on the Veteran Affairs Department progress at state conference.
Yeah, so what I wanted to just update the board on, we just got back from our state conference on Friday. Some great training that we've had through there. And again, I've been here for just a couple of months. It is a great pleasure to know that our county is well supported and resourced by the county. Talking to other Iowa counties in the Veteran Affairs, they don't have as much reach as we do. And it's kind of nice to see. Kind of hope other counties follow along as well, but I have absolutely no idea how to use this clicker.
Just be the up or down arrows.
Okay, all right. All right, got it. So just doing a performance snapshot about what we have going on is we've got and this is just our monthly snapshot of March, 11 new clients, 15 pantry orders, and again, coming back from the state conference, our pantry is pretty much a premier item within the county. Even Polk County, which is the largest veteran population, doesn't have a pantry. They have access to resources closer to their building, but they do not have a pantry that they utilize for their veterans. We talked to the Food Bank of Iowa president. She was very impressed with what we had. So we're able to provide a very unique resource to the county and the county veterans that are there. We did 1 headstone application. We had 183 walk-ins and only 61 appointments, so people are starting to come back into the building and seeking resources from us. With that, our state and federal applications, driver's license application 7, license plates 3. Our federal forms, those are going to be the forms that my caseworkers send out to the federal VA system for various applications, and that's 133. So my caseworkers are working their little ears.
Excuse me, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Back to the headstones. Is that actually a headstone, or is that those markers?
That's a headstone. So they can apply for a headstone for the service member for if they qualify. That gets placed on there. It's the white ivory. It has their name on it and service information on it.
Does that go in only to any cemetery then?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, and then they can also come into us and do the bronze. So if they already have a headstone that the family provided for themselves, then they can get the applique to go with it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And those are called, what do you call those things, the bronze that you put the?
I think appliques markers.
Markers, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And our caseworker training status, we have had turnover. So we have 2 out of the 5 caseworkers that we have, they're accredited, but that process is very long. And so just going on that, 2 of 3 are pending approval. That's include myself and then our part-time Randy Markle. We just went through the basic benefits to go through that. It's actually going a lot faster than we hoped for. So we officially, I just checked yesterday and I've got my what's called the OGC number. So I'm now federally recognized to represent veterans. And same thing with Randy. Our 3rd one, it just got hired on when we did the basic benefits course, so he'll be taking that in August. So we'll be moving through our timeline to have all 5 caseworkers, hopefully before the end of Christmas. It does take a very long time, so please don't be alarmed by that time frame. It's a federal vetting that they make us go through.
I got a question there, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. So, you got 2 right now, so I'm
Correct.
assuming that the other 3, including you,
Mhm.
can kind of get everything prepped, and then the last step, you just have to take it to the caseworker that accredits it? Or
Correct.
accredited
So essentially how we are, it doesn't limit the caseworker per se on working through claims or veteran services. So it's just really access to the federal system, being able to get in there and look on a federal level, the veterans' information. So right now, I have 2 that can access the federal system, 3 that cannot. They can still work applications, take it to one of the accredited caseworkers, and they can produce that stuff. And they can still, all county assistants and service referrals caseworkers can do. And they can even do service claims. It's just with the approval of a accredited caseworker. So, and all pending training has been completed that we have access to. So we got our 5th caseworker will be taking the August course for that, and that's the only time it's been. All CEUs were completed at state training for our existing caseworkers. I've got Paul going to the national conference with myself in San Antonio in the summer. So we'll get some more on the national level there, network with some of the other caseworkers and get some information. And then we have
Those are good, excuse me, but those are good for how long?
It's got to be annual. So caseworkers have to have continuing education credits annually to maintain our accreditation.
How many CUs are gonna have?
It changes, I think, by year, but for instance, it was a whole week or 3 days worth of classroom training that we received.
They gotta go through that every year?
Every year, correct. And there's 2 options to do it. Once with the state association, so the state of Iowa puts on their own caseworker continuing education units, and then the national has a conference annually in different parts of the nation that you're able to get your continuing education credits there.
Are we looking at sending any of our commissioners to this at all? Is that of interest to them at all, or?
I don't think it's really, it's not information that really pertains to us. The national conferences, I mean, we would definitely send somebody if you guys would like us to receive that kind of training.
I went with Darlene McMartin.
Yep.
She was the director down there 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought it was, the whole time I was like, man, I wish the commission was here. You know, just because there's so many topics that they bring up. So I don't know, I'm assuming you get an agenda and you know what those things that you're going to be discussing and meeting about are.
Yeah, they haven't published the agenda yet for the national training. They'll publish them, but it'll go through a lot of service claim stuff, kind of state regulation.
Or the state school,
national.
they offer 1 day
Yes.
for commissioners all day, and that pertains to
Right.
commissioners. It's kind of a situation where if you've been to one, you've been to them all.
Right.
As far as the national conference goes, there, you know, the priority is getting Rita there and getting her
Makes sense.
her training. So, and that has kind of eaten up. Training has kind of eaten up quite a bit of the budget this year.
Yeah, we're absolutely maxing out our training budget this year. So, well, and that's
It doesn't matter.
yeah, and
You get to the point where we're at a point where you need to come back to us and we made your budget, we'll do it. I mean, it's not, I don't think that's gonna be an issue as long as we are getting the services that need to get done.
and I'll be able to come back on the national level after the national conference with more information.
We gotta get the service done, you know.
Yeah. And then we got one pending position we've selected the individual, just waiting on the HR process, and then hopefully they'll be starting soon. So we'll be fully staffed at that point. Right now, we're kind of in a disarray. So if you walk into our building, we've got, the Boy Scouts just delivered a giant pantry to us. So it's all in our hallways. We have the construction crews. We're over halfway done with our window remediation, which is fantastic. So caseworkers are working from laptops in separate offices. We got hopefully a pantry that will be stocked by the end of the day. And we are missing our admin assistant, so it's been pretty sporty. But we're getting everything done pretty good. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. So one of the things that we've decided in the last couple of months is to restart our community outreach services. With that one, our big thing, and I'm still processing the amount of support I've gotten from the Avoca community just by mentioning the fact that we're going to go back to the Avoca courthouse to provide veteran services out from there. We're going to start with May 1st and start in May with the first and third Wednesday. Don't want to overcommit ourselves and then reduce down and disappoint the community. So we wanted to start, and then as we start getting more foot traffic and can track the data of how many veterans we service from that area, we can then at that point create a plan that's researched and verified by data. So what we'll be able to do with that is we'll be able to do all county, state, and federal veteran services. We'll be making a pantry box as we do not have storage at the Avoca Courthouse for food, but we'll be able to, since we've got the blessing of the VA vehicle that we have from the commission, that we will be able to stock that Explorer with what's considered it's gonna have about a week's worth of food for about 2 to 4 person household that we can go in there and just prepare to be able to hand that to veterans that request it. And then on May 5th, the courthouse committee wanted to do a community education event where we get the word out to the local veterans of that region of the county that we are having that. She's already invited some of the veteran service organizations like the Legion into that event so that it'll be my part-time caseworker that is going to be the primary contact for the Avoca Courthouse. So he's going to be there to meet some of those community members and get it out there that we are going to be opening that back up. And this is really important to me as well. My father-in-law lives right across from the Avoca Courthouse. And even after I started this job, as his daughter-in-law, he went to Shelby for some veteran services. So because he didn't want to drive all the way to Council Bluffs.
Is that in Harlan then?
Correct. Yep. And so for that one, it's definitely important that we get that set up so we can have access to the rural veterans in the county that want our services. And I mean, quite frankly, we're way stocked better than the Shelby veterans. They only have one caseworker, and so we have more to offer them. But just because of distance and travel, they don't want to come to Council Bluffs. So, so we'll go to them. Utilize we have the resources for it, so we'll do it. With that, we'll have pending locations that we're trying to identify and end up building that outreach, get Avoca stabilized, get that data going, and then maybe reach out to some of the other outlying communities that we have, such as Carter Lake has the second largest population. See if we can get something going to where we can make that access to veterans of the community and be able to get them into it. And why that matters, well, we'll go through something else here. So new programs and services over the last 2 months that we have been developing and wanting to inform the Board of Supervisors over. And this is for increase in pending services for local veterans. One of my jobs that I have put upon myself is to create success after service for our veterans in the county. And that is going to include education. So we're partnering with Iowa Western Community College. They just did interviews that I helped participate in for the Veterans Center. So they've always had a Veterans Center inside of their buildings right next to the Child Development Center, but it's never been staffed. So they just had kind of a space that they let veterans go to study, watch TV. Now they are hiring a part-time individual that's going to be there every day for about 25 hours for the week and provide them with access to just kind of student veteran needs, help them through maybe education benefits. So with that, I'm going to partner with them. Again, outreach, maybe possibly set up a caseworker visit to help those younger veterans. Most likely they'll be young, ranging from different ages, but they'll be looking to increase their success. And are they utilizing their education benefits that come from the federal system? Are they utilizing what the state of Iowa provides for our National Guard heavy area, seeing if those National Guard soldiers are using their tuition assistance the way they should, having access to that. And that one will actually, because what I want to do is be able to make sure the veterans are utilizing their education benefits, building their knowledge and their employability, and keeping them in Potawatomi County. So we want them to already take their military service, give them the education to match, have them provide that employability into the county. So that's pretty fantastic that they've actually reached out to me and we're building that partnership. I'm also looking at bringing PTSD and MST counseling, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder and military sexual trauma. So we're partnering with a VA program that's already in existence, and we're going to take a look at becoming a community access point. So right now we do not have a official designated PTSD or MST counseling site inside of Council Bluffs. When we fall into those realms with the federal VA system, it's either Des Moines or Omaha. So veterans either have to drive all the way to the Des Moines area to find a specialized counselor. Obviously, we have probably some great civilian counselors here, but the ones that are sponsored from the VA, we do not have one here. They have to go to Des Moines, or they have to go to Omaha, and that place is like way out on 72nd, I believe. And again, sometimes our veterans don't want to travel that far, especially if they are in our rural communities. So that is pending. I talked to them, made a partnership. I got some data to provide to them so that they can validate sending one of their counselors out. But hopefully in the next couple of months I can announce that we have a reoccurring counselor that can come and provide PTSD and MST counseling to our veterans of Council Bluffs in the Potawatomi County. Justice involved veterans. This came to my attention, and that means veterans that are experience legal trouble. So they're either getting arrested or they have legal problems that they are coming in contact with the justice system. The Potawatomi County Jail staff reached out to me. We have a system in the federal VA that is called a Veteran Justice Outreach. We have a counselor, social worker that helps these veterans go from incarceration to successful transition. But again, we fall into, I always call it the redheaded stepchild of the VA, because we are a metropolitan area attached to Omaha, that Douglas County receives a lot of that attention. So there's one Veteran Justice Outreach Coordinator that does both Sarpy, Douglas, Potawatomi, and the adjacent, basically the district that we fall under here. So that Veteran Justice Outreach does not necessarily have access to the veterans inside of Potawatomi County Jail as much as we would like them to be. So part of my role is to partner with jail services and try to bridge that gap between incarcerated veteran and access to those services. And I partnered with Polk County, actually has a program within their Veteran Affairs Office, and I'll be reaching out with them. We talked about, they got checklists that their caseworkers do, and that helps them with housing, if they need assistance with housing, treatment programs, so they have access. So if it's a veteran experiencing a mental health crisis or a veteran experiencing substance abuse crisis, we can get them access to that treatment and obviously become successful members. And the reason why, sometimes we're like, why are we jumping into this? Well, I get these veterans anyways. So whether or not they receive services while they're going through the justice system, they walk through my door afterwards. And now they need help, and now they went back. It actually is a nice rule that if a veteran is incarcerated for more than 61 days and they're receiving benefits from the federal VA system, it is cut off. And so after the 61st day of incarceration, if they're receiving a service-connected disability amount from the VA, then at that point in time, they could be subject to a debt. So obviously, a veteran who's already experienced a justice contact so part of us is to be able to make sure that veteran is reporting necessarily their incarceration level, and a benefit to that as well. If the veteran has a family, whether there's a spouse, a child, they're listed as a dependent, the family can apply for an apportionment of that service-connected disability payment. So at that point, that will then benefit the family that's residing inside of Potawatomi County, making sure that they're getting their resources. Because if their veteran is incarcerated and the money is cut off, then that family's short income. So then even though that 61st day rule exists, if there's a dependent listed, we can help them get access to that so that they can maintain the household income. So that's what we'll do in partnership with the county jail. I've been working through programs. It's in an infancy, so hopefully it'll grow and we can become really effective in making sure that the veterans that receive a judicial contact, that we're helping them through that process, and that they are successful when they get ready to transition back. And that is also with working with the Veterans Justice Outreach, making sure that they do have contact to those federal VA treatment programs. And then with that, something that was new for this last year, I didn't add it on here because I don't know why I didn't think about it, but our relocation incentive that we've pushed through. It hadn't gained a whole lot of traction, and then whenever I got in there, I think I just contacted a couple loan mortgage brokers, and so far we had one previous to my taking the seat, but since then, in the last 2 months, we've had 4 relocation incentives being taken advantage of. And then, so just in 2 months, 4 of them have come through, bringing in that income from them. Some of them, and they've been buying pretty large parcels with them, so it's pretty incredible to see how much of the income potential that's coming back into the county for it.
Rita, are you tracking then where they came from?
Yes, we are. It is part of the requirements for the application that they show. So far, we've had one from Missouri, one from Omaha. We've had one that was a recently separated active duty service member. So that's great. We're bringing that talent back into the community, saying, hey, if you move here, our community supports you. And then they're bringing their talents and their resources into the area. So yeah, it is a requirement that they not live in Potawatomi County beforehand, and they have to provide proof of that. So it is accomplishing what we wanted it to do, which is to recruit and bring in some of that veteran talent. One thing I have throughout my tenure, I've started off with, is we identified some risks and challenges that we have. So currently, right now, we're getting close into the fiscal year, we have used 0% of our burial expenses in our line item. And utilities is a 3%. I believe that one's more because we hadn't seen the need for utilities. I think maybe some of the COVID measures that they pushed, that they're being a little bit more lax on payments for the utilities. We just haven't seen them. But burial is my biggest one. Grave marker and care of grave, that one's kind of just gone away because most of the cemeteries are perpetual care. So we haven't had any need of paying for that. But burials is my main concern that I have. So we are identified inside of the chapter to provide burial expenses for indigent veterans. And as I'm digging through this, why haven't we used any of it this year? Then I took a look at I think last year we had 1 indigent burial that we approved to go through on that one, and in that one, it's very rare. So we haven't been using it over the last couple of years. And in fact, actually, I took a look at our budget, our line item for that has gone down because of lack of use. So why is that? Well, we only provide $1,000 for an indigent burial. And back in our guidelines, that was approved back in 2002. So it's been 20 years since the burial budget the guidelines have been reviewed upon that. And I contacted a couple, and I'll be making probably a request at some point for approval on getting this upped. So I took a look at it. Since we have $1,000 is the cap off. I contacted one of our local funeral homes that we usually partner with and having discussions about veteran benefits. And with that, it's required on our contract that the funeral home provides a metal casket for the veteran, and that itself is $1,700. So, and we have to, and the way it's written up is that we basically force the funeral home to take a loss by accepting our indigent burial amount. So we cap them at $1,000, but we require them to provide services to the veteran, and so they have to sign off on the loss. Well, the funeral homes don't have to take our indigent burial. They're the ones that have to refer to us. So obviously, the funeral homes are not going to be referring indigent families of veterans to us. The state of Nebraska, they will operate differently than how the state of Iowa does for the Veteran Affairs budgets. So the state approves their indigent burials, but they provide $3,000 for an indigent burial.
What's in our budget for that?
Right now, currently, the line item holds $5,000. and it just doesn't get used. And from my understanding, it gets turned back every year. So that's said, why is that? And it's really because we don't provide enough. So the funeral homes have to take a loss, and we have very strict requirements for the families off of it. So if they receive the $255 Social Security death lump benefit, that gets taken out of the $1,000. So even though a family gets that $255, then now that $1,000 is reduced down. And then if they have any, and obviously, so if they have a life insurance policy, that has to go towards it, but that's a little bit more reasonable. Cash on hand, and there's no rules on that. So cash on hand, if the veteran's family has cash on hand, they have to provide that towards the funeral as well. And really, for me, I feel like if we've got a veteran widow sitting in front of us that has $150, I'm not asking her to put that $150 onto the burial. If they're asking for an indigent, like, what is she going to do for groceries that next day? So
what are you proposing then?
quite honestly, I'm proposing, I took a look at it, at the minimum, I'm not proposing anything yet. I'm going to do some research and provide a lot more database. But something that I might be requesting is about $2,000. The funeral homes can do a cremation for about $2,000. And that's cremation based. I don't know what it will look like if we have any religious.
Cremation and service?
Just the cremation. That's just the cremation and remains given to the family. We do have, I believe, the federal burial services, so if they die of a service-connected disability, then the federal system does provide a burial allowance, and that's about $2,000 as well. So I want us to at least match what the federal system offers, and then, because this is not if they have that. So if the veteran has access to the burial allowance because of a service-connected disability, then obviously that is what they'll use. This is for indigent families that can't pay for the funeral services.
What is the reasoning behind the metal casket?
From my belief, it's for honor of the veteran, providing a service to them. That was what was written in there. I'd have to talk to the architects of the original.
What does it cost to go to Des Moines for that funeral?
So they have access, so veterans do have access to cemeteries based off of their service record. So not every veteran will qualify for access to national cemeteries. We actually have one closer than the Des Moines one that's here in Omaha, that's in the Omaha area, that most of our veterans that die within this area, they go to because it's easier for the families to go. But they can go to any national cemetery of their choice, veteran cemetery of their choice. Des Moines has one, Omaha has one. So they can be buried for free. There does not include the mortician costs.
We took one to Des Moines, so I've been up there.
It's a pretty nice
You can either
cemetery.
bury them in the ground or they have the urns.
Yep. So, and that's something that I will be probably pursuing over as we get more data and I create a plan that can probably benefit the veterans, but at the same time keep us within our budget.
One real quick question for you, Rita. On that relocation assistance, is that $2,500 a piece?
Correct.
Did you budget 10 for that?
I believe we had 10 awards, correct. So we're about halfway through it for the fiscal year.
You make sure those reloads get registered to vote?
Registered to vote?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just one of those things if they're moving in.
Well, and that's been pretty nice on what, we don't provide voters registration. I might talk to you about that later. But we have getting the driver's license. And that's what's been nice about the relocation program is that then at that point, these veterans, for instance, the active duty service member that applied for the relocation, typically we don't see them right away. We don't see them when they come into the community. We don't get them into our office. This has been able to provide us an opportunity to get that veteran in front of us and get them their state and county benefits, and then also get them working within their service claims.
Well, you guys are doing the driver's license with the veteran.
I mean,
exposure at the.
All right, they'll do it to DOT then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, do you have more?
I do.
Oh.
I do. And this is my, I guess, justification for why we should support veterans in the county. So something that I dug up and took a look at. So here are the VA economic awards that come into our county. This is just by the month. So for the month of March of 2022, we have brought in, not we, I apologize, but the veterans with their federal economic awards that they bring in, whether it's compensation, pension, DIC, is over $3 million. So within a population of 2,000, we have $3 million per month coming into the county that they pay their rent with, they pay their mortgage, they shop with their groceries with it, they are sending their kids to youth sports with it. So just within a month, supporting veterans and getting them access to service claims, getting them registered to vote, getting them the driver's license, and having that stuff, it's bringing in and providing that economic stimulus to the system. So according to the National Center for Veterans Analysis and Statistics, the approximate veteran population is about over 7,000 at the current moment. And we've got about 2,000, so the pension, survivor pension, those are non-war based, so that's income based. So these are assisting veterans that fall underneath a certain amount of income limit, and they're providing that assistance to them, taking the strain off of our social services inside of the county. Our DIC is an award to surviving spouses of veterans for different qualifying events. And compensation is the service-connected compensation that veterans receive for injuries sustained in service. So per month, that's bringing in over $3 million. And if we only have about a third of them for that, then obviously we still have veterans that we need access to. So there's probably other veterans out there that have claims that they should be submitting. They have wartime or service-connected injuries that then will be able to have. So that's my, what the amount of resources you're giving to the veteran office, we're bringing that back in with federal dollars. So that's why, please support us. And then with that, also some statistics over veterans in the area is that our economic awards that we have from the federal VA system, we're 4th in the state. We're 4th to Polk, obviously is the largest, and then we closely follow Scott and Lynn. Outside of that, we're the 4th largest that brings that in. And hopefully I can get closer to knocking Lynn off the list at some point. And then with that, that's about $36 million a year if we make that is being brought in for economic stimulus. We're about 25% for all era veterans that have a service-connected disability. Our post 9/11 Persian Gulf War second veterans, about 41% of them are receiving service-connected disability. What that means to you guys is that it's actually projected that our veteran population is going to go down. So veteran population is going to go down over the next couple of years. But our service-connected ratings are going to go higher. That, on the sociology side of the veterans population for that's because with the all-volunteer force, less people are serving in the military. But they're serving longer, and they're coming back with more resources. So with the 41%, our veteran population might go down, but our numbers for economic awards from the federal system might go up. And then that also is that our unemployment rate in Iowa for veterans is about 1.4% from the reports that I've read. So does that mean if they're receiving a service-connected disability that they're not working? No, that actually means that they're bringing that money in with them, plus they're becoming talent and employment inside of our community. So that's what we have for veterans giving back into the community and what our office is providing for there. Then VA identification of area need. Because of our area and our veteran population, the federal VA system has actually identified through their Vision 23, we're considered, it's like Veteran Integrated System Network, Vision, FISN. We fall under that since we have the Omaha VA Medical Center is where we come into that. They have made a report identifying this area of having inpatient medical and surgical services increase about 6%. Inpatient mental health services are going to be increasing by 4%, and this is need-based. So make that clarification. Our long-term care is 47.4%. What that means is our veterans are aging. So long-term need for our veterans are going up by almost 50%. So our community is needing to start to prepare for that. So what do we do with these veterans that start needing that long-term health care? And the VA system has also identified that. So there's an expected growth in demand of all outpatient services. What does that mean is, luckily we have been identified as an area of growth that they're going to prioritize. I have not seen exactly what that's going to look like yet, but they have identified Council Bluffs as being a location for a new CBOC. And what that is a new primary care and mental health facility in this area for the veterans of our county. So over the next couple of years, I just had a VA hospital rep in my office this morning, so I got to ask them all the hard questions for it. They haven't moved on past this report. It just came out a couple months ago, but they will be probably in the next couple of years identifying a CBOC. So the veterans because right now we got veterans that drive to Shenandoah, that's where the next closest CBOC is for veteran health care, or the Omaha VA Medical Center. Those are the only two resources currently. So they have identified Council Bluffs as a location that will be a high value to put in a location for primary care and mental health facilities. So we will get assistance in providing that type of care to our veterans. So, any questions on that? All right. So, really that's all I have. And that's what I wanted to provide information about what's happening with the VA department. Hopefully, we'll get more information about that Vision 23 improvements of the VA medical system here in this area, and continued growth in our veteran services. So, any questions?
Yeah, appreciate it. And then do you have numbers on people that are serving now?
I do not. No, I do not have a current amount, but they have, they have it, I could probably provide it. They have a projection of the area growth of the population. It's just kind of.
They're really cautious giving that information.
Yeah.
No, I was, yeah.
They
well,
don't.
With Hoffman over there, we have quite a few that live over.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that I want to be able to do is tap into that. So Omaha has multiple times been put on the list for top places for veterans to move to because they have access to the Offutt Air Force Base. Myself, I've gotten prescriptions there for free, going access to the Veterans Medical Center there. Omaha has been listed. Unemployment's really low in this area. So one of my goals as the VA director is why can't Potawatomi County make that? How can we become the county of choice between that? So we've got active duty service members from Offutt that are right here. How do we have them purchase land over here, send their kids to our schools, and part of that is to provide our veteran services. My rants are George Washington actually created the concept of veteran services. We have the UK doesn't have veteran services. Australia doesn't have veteran services. They do their time. They might get some sort of compensation for injuries sustained, but they don't have a VA system. George Washington made a concept that if we treat our veterans well, then future generations are willing to serve. And so with that post-Civil War, with the most amount of displaced veterans the country has seen, that's when the Veteran Affairs Administration was created. So with that, our sponsoring our veterans is just overall a good situation. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one real quick question for you. When you said that you're going to work some outreach in Avoca, how are you addressing the handicap needs at that courthouse?
So there is a ramp they have going through the back.
What about it's been so long since I've been here, are the restrooms and all that stuff accessible now too?
So I have to take a look. I can't think of off the top of my head if they have any rails in that bathroom or not, but they have a handicap ramp out the back, and there's a place that they can park in the back of the Avoca courthouse with a ramp, a concrete ramp that goes into the back of the courthouse, and then everything is wide enough for a wheelchair because it's all on the first floor. And the office that we're in is pretty wide. I do not know if the bathrooms have any handicap rails in them. With it being a historical building, I don't know what they've they've done for it,
Yeah,
but.
you might reach out to that Legion there too, because I think that's what we had to do in the past, is go meet them. They kind of did a little bit of an appointment, and so they knew we were coming on that day, for example, and then they just meet them down at the Legion. But you probably need to rekindle that conversation, 'cause I don't know anyone's.
Well, and part of that on May 5th, where the Legion's gonna be there and we're gonna create some partnerships with it. And part of our outreach too, that we're trying to do is provide some of those, so if there's a veteran that cannot come to us, we can go to them. We got the VA vehicle, why not throw a caseworker in it, send them with their laptops that they have and a binder and go help service that veteran.
Still up and going too?
That actually is not, it's another thing we're working in the process with. The VA hospital system has created they've revamped all of that stuff.
We have it, we have tablets already.
We do. So that's something we talked with the rep today. He was just in, we talked to him about getting some of that stuff set up. Because with the fact the VA hospital system has gone a lot of digital, it's great for younger generation veterans. So like myself, I can log in, I can talk to my primary care doctor, I can make appointments, I can schedule my prescriptions. But eras like my father-in-law, who has a flip phone, he leaves,
Roby uses it all the time.
Yeah, he leaves his cell phone at home even though he needs it. He can't do, I mean, it's difficult for him to navigate the My Healthy Vet systems that they have and look at it. And quite honestly, sometimes you can do damage in those systems for your own files. So obviously we don't want veterans accessing it if they're not comfortable with it, because they can go in there and kind of steer it can just digitally jack up their stuff. Apologize. But so with that, we're trying to find ways inside of our office that we can assist veterans that might not have ease or access to technology, access to that. Because the VA medical healthcare system is going digital, and they're taking a lot of this personalized care that they used to have there at the hospital to these regional centers. So for instance, if a veteran has a I'm currently working with a veteran who has kind of a discrepancy between his income-based stuff with the VA hospital. He cannot talk to somebody at the VA hospital here locally about it. The closest person is in Kansas. So trying to find those ways of getting them that digital access so that they can get some of those things resolved or access to that care is something we're going to try to do. We got tablets. Hopefully we're able to get those up and going once our construction's done and work that.
Do we have our vehicle going, veterans vehicle?
Yes, so we currently have that vehicle. It's we took it to Des Moines for our training. It's going to be the primary vehicle that goes down to Avoca because like I said, I have it set up to where it costs no extra outside of gas for that vehicle. Our caseworker comes in at 8, packs up the VA Explorer, goes down to Avoca, sets up by 9, leaves by 3:30, comes back, downloads into the VA building, and goes back normal business hours. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah, last question, and then seriously, last question. No, that's good. Are we standardizing the commission meetings? I heard there might be another change in the time or something.
There was a change, yeah. The struggle is that we had a commission member who got a new job, and she was trying to figure out, what her schedule and availability was. So yesterday at our meeting, we decided on
Second Mondays at 3.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you.
Till further notice.
Yeah, well, one of us, we just want to make sure
hopefully
one of us
that's
are
it.
there.
Hopefully that's last change.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Holly, for coming in.
Next up, we have Matt Wilbur, County Attorney, discussion on minutes from December 21st, 2021. Matt, you're up.
All right, I feel like your board's trying to set a record for longest meeting ever today, so
We've had more.
plenty to go. All right.
We've had a lot of them.
All you're really required to do, just for some background, when you discover an error in your minutes, it's not that there's anything in Robert's rules or the statute that requires that we have this formal discussion. But since this pertains to an error regarding the Mount Crescent Ski Hill purchase and Hitchcock Park expansion, and because the genesis of my discovery of this was an inquiry from a citizen wanting to know about the timeline of that purchase, I thought rather than have you put this on the consent agenda like you normally do, that we probably ought to discuss it so I can sort of explain sort of how we get from point A to point B. So as the, where did my clerk go? Melvin disappeared.
Yeah, Jen is our clerk right
Okay, so generally speaking, right, so I've got a clerk, all right, that sits there, and they're taking something called scratch, can you put up the scratch minutes? Sorry, first. So they'll take scratch minutes, as you're all aware. I'm not really telling this for your benefit, it's more for the benefit of folks here and watching online, right? But, so you've got handwritten scratch minutes that the clerk is taking. And so if you just, get me to the next page of the scratch minutes. I actually really want to go to the last page, so just go to page 5. Okay, scroll, can you squeeze it down? Can you make it smaller? Yeah. There we go, now scroll down more. Oh, yeah, keep going. One more reduction. Oh, no. Oh, I got it. There we go, the whole page on. Okay, so you originally had on December 21st, you had 2 closed sessions that were scheduled. One, I don't know what it was about, it got pulled off, it was a personnel matters. It got pulled off, so you didn't actually have closed session that day. So you can see what had happened is, this is the closed session that was the discussion about the proposed purchase agreement for the Hitchcock Park expansion, Mount Crescent Ski Hill. And you can see that you came out of closed sessions, motion by Wickman, second by Shea, to go out of closed session, right? 5 ayes, and then Melvin had written, right? W was Wickman, authorized chairman to sign agreement as discussed in closed session with the 2 Schultz. So Supervisor Schultz seconded it, unanimous. Then he just draws an arrow up, right, to show where that goes. Jeanette, your board assistant, just started work November 30th, I think, is when you hired her. So this was actually the first closed session that she had ever dealt with where a motion came out of it afterwards. And if you could go up to page 4, there, actually, that's perfect right there. All right, so you can see the closed session agenda item was closed session pursuant to, for discussion or decision on sale of real estate. Motion by Wickman, second by Schultz to go into closed session. Then, motion to go out of closed session, and then the actual decision should have been put there in the minutes. Okay, now go to the original minutes for 12/21. And okay, that's good. So the way Jeanette typed it up, right, she put the arrow into the middle of those 2, not at the end of that closed session. So the way the minutes actually read is motion to go into closed session pursuant to 2151J, discussion or decision on purchase of sale of real estate, period. Authorize Chairman Belt to sign agreement as discussed in closed session. So it makes it look like you made that decision in closed session, which you did not. The video of that session has now been released also in conjunction with that inquiry. It's very clear through that 29-minute, 59-second video that there is no motion made in closed session about that. And as far as just, sort of workflow, when the scratch minutes are done, Melvin takes them in and hands them to Jeanette. She scans them in, so there's actually a digital trail to show that those, the scratch minutes are scanned in literally within 2 minutes of your board meeting. And then she uses the scratch minutes to type the other minutes. Now, I would say the lesson that should be learned here, granted, Jeanette was brand new, right? But there probably is a lesson for the board that maybe you should read your minutes and make sure that they are accurate before you just approve them. Because when you don't do that, right, and you just assume that they're correct, then what happens is you leave incorrect assumptions, which lead to question marks, which lead to complaints, which lead to, frankly, me spending dozens of hours responding to those complaints, right? So that's my minimal, I guess, chastisement of it's important to pay attention to those. So put up a corrected minutes. So what I am asking, and really I don't need any formal motion, I really just need, unless there's input from the board to the contrary, I just need the chairman saying the motion or the minutes stand approved as corrected. Then I will get a signature from Chairman Belt, a signature from Melvin Hauser as the clerk of that day, and those will be placed in the minutes book. But I'm just asking for this correction to conform to what happened on video and what happened in the scratch minutes, that you went into closed session, you went out of closed session. Once you're out of closed session, that motion was made to approve the purchase agreement. That certainly does not mean that you weren't doing a lot of talking about the purchase agreement in closed session. That's appropriate, that's legal, that's not a problem. Coming out of closed session is when you made the motion to approve it. And so I'm just asking that you make that correction so that I can deal with the timeline accurately.
So you want me to say that the minutes of December 21st, 2021 are amended as presented?
Yeah. Unless you've got any different, if I have not accurately summarized what happened, then this is the time for somebody to speak up. Otherwise, they stand approved as corrected, and then I will get those signatures, and that at least corrects that issue.
Good. Good.
Okay. That's all I got.
Next up, Janet Lamrick,
Thanks, Matt.
Director of Human Resources.
So you don't need a motion on that?
I don't.
Okay.
Discussion and decision to approve and authorize the board signing 2022-23 wage increase between Potawatomi County and the Potawatomi County Deputy Sheriff's Association, effective July 1 of 22 through June 30th, 23. Janet?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Well, you'll want to have, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I don't know how much we need to discuss it, because you guys, we have discussed this already, but, you know, the deputies felt, we had a 2-year contract with the deputies. With the state of inflation and what's going on in our world, did ask the board to take a look at that and provide them a little bit of a higher pay increase based on inflation. The board kindly agreed, and so we're doing that in an MOU. We're not reopening the contract, it's going in an MOU.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Jenna, you're still up. This is to discussion, decision to approve a job description, site manager and mechanical operations and maintenance manager. Jenna, you're up.
So these 2 positions will be housed in conservation. They accurately describe what the site manager is doing and will be doing in the future, as well as your mechanical operations and maintenance manager. The recommendation, because they are both managers and will be supervising others, even if it's only seasonal staff, is to make them exempt positions at a pay grade 520, and they would be non-union.
When we approve these, will that be posted?
Well, that is still yet to be determined. So what we're looking at today is approving, yep, just the job descriptions.
Take a look at those. Yep. Any discussion, questions on any of those? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up.
We didn't get a motion on that one.
I wrote it down.
You had one on the table.
I started thinking of you.
All right, well,
I'll give you that motion though. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I put it in the wrong spot.
Okay.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, hey, rock on, way to keep me in line. All right, next up, we have Miss Heather Schaefer, Assistant in Human Resources, discussion and or decision to remove the 1-year waiting period for new employees to earn wellness incentive. Heather, you are up.
Thank you, sir. So just to provide a little bit of historical context, back when we entered into an agreement with our third-party wellness vendor, Locked-in Health Solutions, it was wrote into the not into the contract. It was determined by Pot County that our new hires would serve a 1-year waiting period before receiving their wellness incentive. They still have to complete the same requirements. They still have to do the biometric screening within the designated time frame, as well as either go to their provider or go to OC Health within that time frame. But they still have to wait the full year to earn their wellness incentive. So we're just seeing a little bit of disconnect or lower participation in our wellness program than we would like to. We have about 450 full-time employees, and currently we have 225 of our full-time employees taking advantage of the wellness incentive. We'd like to see that number higher, but I guess the bigger problem that we see is kind of on the front end with the new employees. In fiscal year '21, we had about 35 new hires, and then to this point, we've had about 24 full-time new hires for this fiscal year, and we've only got about 7 of those 24 who have completed their wellness requirements and are currently in the waiting period, serving their 1 year, if you will, before they get their wellness incentive. So I guess what we'd like to do is drop the 1 year wait period and offer new employees the opportunity to earn their incentive on month 2, like when their health insurance kicks in. So, for example, what we'd like to do with these 7 who are currently waiting their 1 year is kind of grandfather them in and offer it to them July 1st when our new wellness program starts. It's about, so just for example, that's about $1,680 that we'll be offering for all of those employees to get their.
For the year?
Yeah. Yep, to get them going. But we could see up to, if we're offering 30 employees to earn their $30 reduction in their healthcare premium and not wait the full year, we might be looking at, it still varies. That's if all of those full-time employees take advantage of it. It'd be, closer to
$6,000.
80, yeah.
Motion approved.
Second, starting July 1st of 2022, right?
Yeah. And then moving forward, when I onboard new hires, we'll work through the logistics with Lockton Health Solutions to ensure that employees are getting their incentive and not waiting the full year.
Thanks for identifying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any questions for Heather on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, David Byer.
Thanks, guys.
Discussion and a decision to approve and authorize the board chair to sign the internet service agreement with Lumen. David, you're up, wherever you are.
Sure. I shot you guys out an email last week describing what these are for and what they accomplish for us. The internet service agreement with Lumen would be a secondary internet service to this building. Right now we pay Cox for internet service. This would be a secondary service because we feel that because we have so many cloud applications and internet services that, and I listed them in that email I sent you, there's a dozen or more services which should have a backup in case Cox were to go down for whatever reason. We could have a failover opportunity to keep everyone active and live and not experience any outage. So that's what that first one is for.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any other discussion with David on this? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. David, you're still up. This is to approve and authorize the board chair to sign the EPL service agreement with Great Plains Communication. David.
So this is service between the courthouse and our backup site at 1819 Farnham in Omaha. Right now we pay Lumen $2,700 a month for 1 gig of service. The new agreement that you have in front of you is for the same level of service, but at $1,000 a month. So it's kind of a slam dunk, saves some money, same speed, same service.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion for David.
Thank you for saving money. You'll probably already spend it though.
Right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, discussion decision to approve the application for use of Potawatomi County grounds for the Bible reading marathon on July 14th through the 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Scott, did you reach out to them and let them know that if they're gonna be on the?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was well aware of it.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. We do it every year.
Yeah. No, we would not.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next up, we have public comments. I'm going to read this statement real quick before we start. The board will now allow up to 30 minutes for comments from the public. The board will call speakers to the podium in the order in which they have signed up on the form provided. Each speaker is limited to no more than 2 minutes for speaking, must speak from the podium, and must first state his or her name and address for the record. Comments should be directed